We may be live. Did I? Okay, good. I think I've got the mic going. Let's see if everything is running here. Refresh this page. So far, nothing. Oh, it's happening. Let's see if we've got audio. And yep, we are good. Yay! Oh, that. I was going to say that went smoothly and then thought I should keep my mouth shut because that's a stupid thing to say. Okay, so that's just asking for trouble, right? Let's see. Recording. Thank you. No, I was not, Joseph. So there we go. Let me get everything where it's supposed to be on the screen. Okay. So tonight, that didn't work. Hold on. Let me fix that. I don't think that's still going to be in. Oh, no, it's still okay. Tonight, I am continuing on the tiger we were working on last week. I've been working on the water this week, so I really haven't done anything else to the face since we last spoke. So let's go ahead. I think that's fixed. That is going. Pull the chat window back up. Good. Okay. And let me zoom in on my reference photo over there. If you want to see what my setup looks like, I just posted a video over on both our Facebook group, which that link is in the video description, and Instagram. If you want like a quick view of what the setup in the studio, like where I've got my palette and stuff set up, that's over there. Just a reminder, if you look at what Valerie has written, and I'm sure Valerie and Joseph, they remind you guys constantly, but if you ask me a question and you don't see that at Lachri Fine Art highlighted in orange, I won't see it. So just make sure, I know people get frustrated with me and think I'm ignoring you unless you pay me something, which is the funniest claim ever to me. But it's not true, by the way. I just don't see it if it's not highlighted. Yeah, that's right. Highlighted in orange. So make sure if you're having trouble getting that to happen, ask Valerie or Joseph. Someone will walk you through how to make that happen. I honestly don't know how you guys do it. So let's go ahead and get started. So this guy, I'm working on his face. I'm actually going to slide that over just a bit. Let me see. I haven't even pulled out my brushes. They're all just sitting here still. I don't know what I need for tonight. I'm kind of a mess at the moment. Let's see. I think I'm good on my paint. So at this point, I'm going to just start blocking in where my black stripes are going to be. I mean, they're painted kind of, but I had a hard time last week telling what went where. So I think we're just going to go ahead and block those in really quickly, very messily. If I can find my brushes that I want. Got a whole bunch of brushes I don't need for tonight. Let's move all that out of the way. A bunch of paint I don't need too. I'll just throw that on the floor because, yeah. I cleaned my studio earlier. You would never know it right now. Everything's all over the place again. Sometimes I'm not sure why I even bother cleaning, because I'm just going to mess it all back up as soon as I pick up that paintbrush. Okay. So I'm not going to use straight black. I'm going to go with kind of a bluish black paint. I'm mixing a little bit of water in with this. We'll mix a little bit of black, and that is cobalt blue. Thin that out a bit. And let's go ahead and start blocking that in. And it's subtle, but I'm able to see where those lines went. I'm not going to worry about it being perfect. I just want it about in the right place, and this is going to make it easier for me to tell where the rest of the fur goes. Whenever you're working with spots or stripes, that can be a bit of a challenge, keeping track of which line went to what. Kristen said, how do you resist the urge to finish a piece and don't you lose the vibe if you stop? No, well, if I stop and do a painting in between, sometimes that'll do it. Like actually this last week, because I wanted something different for Patreon. I wanted a how to paint a bokeh background without a airbrush. So I did that in between, and that definitely kind of got me out of the loop. I didn't paint again. No, I did paint Saturday, so I did better this time. Normally, it's not uncommon for me to be like a week before I want to go back to what I was previously working on. Normally, I make myself finish it before I move on to the next. Otherwise, I have a tendency not to finish it at all. So, or, just put it off and put it off and put it off. The longer I wait between finishing something, the more chance there is of me either just putting it off forever, or, well, maybe not forever, for a really long time, or not finishing it at all. So I try to get everything done as quickly as possible. see. Eduardo said, could you give some tips for drawing fur with colored pencil? How not to look so flat and how to draw the white hairs over color. So the white hairs over color, that one's really easy for me. Now I use the Touch Up Texture Titanium White Mixture from brushandpencil.com. That, and if you look on the front page of my YouTube channel, that's on one of the videos under colored pencil, how to get white lines. That has been a lifesaver for me. It has made my life, like, seriously, so much easier. It's, of all, like, my main complaints with colored pencil has always been getting the white highlights or getting stuff on, you know, detail on top. That can be such a challenge. And since I started using that product, not a problem at all anymore. So that really helps a lot. But if you don't have that product, you have to maintain the white of the paper. I mean, those white highlights, you just have to let the white, don't put pencil where you want those white highlights to be. Because while you'll be able to lighten it up some, you'll never be able to lighten it up all the way. Once you've gotten it dark, unless you're using Touch Up Texture Titanium White, that you can bring back to white. But without that, and as far as archival products go, because some people will try acrylic paint or gel pens, they're not archival, so it's not something that I use. But yeah, that is how I get the white highlights. But for tips for drawing fur in colored pencil, let's see. Mainly, I mean, really what you're going to hear me talk about tonight, clumps and clusters, when I start getting into the details. It's the same with colored pencil, building up your clumps and clusters. It's not that different from how I work in any other medium. Everything, I mean, it's easy to think that one medium to another is super, super different. It's not as different as I think we have a tendency, like our brains are trying to tell us it's super different. Yeah, this is a lot faster than colored pencil, but I still have to build the clumps and clusters of fur in the same way that I would, no matter what medium I'm working in. So here, like, I'm watching which direction my brush strokes go. I'm sketching back and forth, making sure that these lines, even though I'm going to paint over them, I still want them to go in about the right direction. And if I were working in colored pencil, I would do the same. Make sure they're going in about the right direction. Now, the big difference with colored pencil for me is I would work like one small area at a time, maybe 1 square inch, or work on the forehead and then one little section over here. I wouldn't jump around as much as I'm doing on this. But yeah, just paying attention to the clumps and clusters and looking at it as abstract shapes. That's the big thing when you're drawing or painting fur, no matter what medium you're working in. If you try to draw hair where, let me see if I can scratch a piece of paper somewhere. Actually, I do. Hold on. We'll just paint on the back of this. So one of the things that people have a tendency to want to do is draw individual strands. This is not a good brush for that, but draw strands. Like, look, I'm drawing fur. Instead of the clumps, where are those clumps and clusters, those highlights, those sections? Don't try to make the fur be these super long strands. And you've got to look at your reference photo, but don't try to draw. And I've seen people do that with lions. I've seen people do it with people where it's like one strand going all the way down. Unless you're going for an extremely stylized look, which is fine if that's your goal. But if you're going for realism, look at the little clumps and clusters. I mean, if you look even at my hair, the way it's curled, the light's going to hit certain areas. So it's not going to be one line going down. You're going to hit a highlight here, a shadow, a highlight. It's all different clumps and clusters. So that's my big tip for fur. Let's see. Donna said, talking about white fur over color, why can't you use acrylic paint? Say you're using polychromos. Because acrylic paint is a water-based, oops, wrong side of the brush there. Acrylic paint is a water-based paint. And your colored pencils are oil and wax-based, and so you can't put a water-based product on top of wax or oil. It's not going to be archival. It will end up chipping over time. So that's why. Good question. I guess I should point that out when I talk about that. It's easier to learn, I think, when you know the reason why not to do something instead of just don't do this. So I need to make sure to tell you guys that. Clarice wants to know my fancy tea I'm drinking, and can chicken make a visit? Chicken might. I don't know if I put the lid on this, he'll be fine to come in here later on if we stop earlier. I don't like him. The acrylic paints are non-toxic. I'm sure it's fine, but I'm super paranoid because I'm way too attached to that bird. So I usually, if I'm painting at all, I can't smell these though. If I can smell it, that's kind of my sign of, nope, chicken can't be in the room. But none of these have any smell to them. And acrylics are non-toxic. It's the oils that are the problem. But anyway, the tea is Stash. They're raspberry hibiscus herbal. So it's a caffeine-free one. Because I already had coffee earlier and I cannot have that much caffeine. It will make me sick. I really like green tea, but I love the taste of it. But too much caffeine if I'm going to have coffee too. So yeah, remind me about chicken, you know, about 10 minutes before the stream is over, and I'll put the lid on the paint and I can bring him in for a visit. What are the differences, Phyllis said, between black, lamp black, Mars, and ivory? Good question. Lamp and ivory are real close, similar. They're both fairly translucent. The ivory looks a little, I want to say that one's the warmer one. I think I only have ivory. I don't have lamp. And that may just be a difference, and I could be wrong on this part. Lamp and ivory may be a difference between brands. I'm looking at Liquitex Basics, and I've got ivory and Mars Black. I don't have a lamp, so I'm not sure if they even make a lamp in Liquitex Basics. But the ivory black and the lamp black are going to be more translucent, whereas Mars Black is like super opaque, dark. With most brands. You may have some differences between some brands. That is possible. You will, I mean, brand to brand, they'll make different things happen. But with Winsor & Newton and Liquitex, that's been pretty true with all of them. You know, the Mars Black, very dark, lamp or ivory, very, very translucent in comparison. So like the ivory black, I really like for doing glazes. That's what I use it for the most part. There we go. That's when I switch over, is when I want like to tint or create a shadow, but I don't necessarily want a really, what is this mess? I don't even know, when I sketched out these lines, I don't even know what I was looking at. I'm like, was I just like looking over, like not even at the reference photo and sketching out? Because some of these lines aren't anything to do with what is on my photo. I think you're a line. Oh, I think I was drawing in where the white was going to go. See, sometimes if you put too much detail, like you can be sketching things out and it makes a lot of sense. And by the way, if you're going to sketch things out with acrylic paints, if you're going to draw on top of the canvas like I did here, like you can see how well that shows up. It's going to confuse me later. This is a General's white charcoal pencil, and this is wonderful because it will erase, or in this case it's just kind of blending out with my paint. If you use a regular graphite pencil, one, it wouldn't show up on something this dark, but two, those lines, kind of that glossiness shows through a lot of these transparent paints, especially with Liquitex Basics, being that they are so translucent. So that is what I've used here. But sometimes, because one of the questions that a lot of people ask me is, how do you know how much detail to add in your the sketch? It depends on each artist, because even me, some of my lines are confusing the crap out of me, and I would honestly be better off just freehanding them in than sitting here trying to figure out why did I put that line there? That line isn't, like, I don't even know what I was looking at with that line. Sometimes too many lines can actually make things more difficult. So it depends on the artist, though, how many lines you find to be helpful and when it starts to just confuse you, like what's happening to me right now. Let's see. Jay Garcia Art said, what are your tips for gaining a following on social media? Post consistently. Don't use me as an example lately. I've actually been pretty bad about that. Post consistently, I'd say at least once a day on all of them. A lot of them, it's better if it's a couple, 3 times, 4 times a day, except for Facebook. Facebook, actually, the more you post, the less they share with people. So any more than once a day, the next posts are real likely not to be shared. Their algorithms are terrible and I hate them. But I'm going to mix a medium. Let's add some. So this color, actually, I'm going to come back to that question. This color here is my raw sienna, and it's fairly translucent. It's kind of in the middle. It's not super opaque, not super translucent. I'm adding a little bit of unbleached titanium white, and that's going to make it more opaque. And actually, that's going to be too yellow, so I'm going to pull some of my burnt sienna into that. So this gives it more of a reddish hue. And this doesn't have to be perfect. I am going to glaze over all of this. So when these base layers, as I'm painting, none of this needs to be perfect. I'm going to keep correcting and tightening things up and making it more and more accurate as time goes on. Now, that said, I do want to make sure my outline is perfect. Like you see that I'm talking about my inside line. Some of those weren't drawn out right. I'm seeing as I'm looking closer. But the outline, this has to be absolutely perfect before you start painting. But the rest of this, get your eye in the right place, the nose in the right place. The rest of it you can build up and start correcting as you go. But if you're trying to correct your base outline, that gets frustrating, and just make sure it's drawn right to begin with. But for building a following on social media, posting regularly, and post things that people would be interested in. What is useful to people? Sometimes posting things that are motivational, like a motivational quote, that could be your post for today. So if you did not have artwork to share, post something, go online and look up a motivational quote. you've got tons of, actually Bob Ross has a lot that I love. Bob Ross has a lot of good ones. Picasso. There's a lot of really good quotes from great artists that will, I'm going to work this in the direction of the fur, but that brush is starting to dry out a little bit too much. I don't have enough water on the brush. Let me thin that out a bit. You can use that as a post, but something that somebody else is going to want to retweet or reshare, something that makes people want to see more of. Motivational things are really good. Of course, your artwork, and if you can tell people how you're doing something in your art, if they can learn something, I think that really, people are really interested in that. You can show them, it's good to show them a bit of your personal life, but not too much of your personal life. Selfies taken in front of the bathroom mirror, looking at you, my little sister. My little sister does this all the time. Drives me crazy. I'm always getting on her about that. So tacky. So I love her, but I cannot break that habit of hers. No one needs to see you in the bathroom. That's kind of weird. Watch what you're posting. Depending on what type of following you're trying to gain, if you're a food person, or your videos or your content is about food, then fine. But if it's not, most of the time people don't need to see what you're eating. Occasionally it's cool if it's something fancy and that looked really fancy, but like I've seen some artists that think that we need to see every single meal they've ever had. I don't care what you had for breakfast, quite honestly. I mean, I'm glad you ate. I'm glad you're healthy. That's about the extent of my interest there. So watch that. And again, if it's something like, I've seen one of my friends, actually Lena, recently posted on her stories Lena Dania posted on her Instagram. So I'm going to give you an example of one that I thought was actually kind of cool. Of these vegan tacos that were, the way that they were done with the lettuce, it was with cauliflower, and I love cauliflower, so that looked super good. So every once in a while, something like that I think can be interesting, but when you get to where you're posting your meals every single day, I've unfollowed quite a few people because I got sick of seeing nonstop food. Avoid political stuff, avoid stuff like that. You're going to alienate too many people. And then, just trying to keep positive and motivational stuff I think is really good, along with your artwork, but posting consistently. And stuff that people, don't post. Let's say you're trying to build an art channel. Don't post a bunch of pictures constantly about a car. Like if you're a mechanic, I wouldn't post a ton of car pictures. That the people who followed you for the art aren't really going to be interested in that. So you might want 2 separate accounts in that case. Make sure what you're posting is actually of interest. I'm going to switch direction. I'm not paying attention here. Make sure that what you're posting is of interest to the people who are following you. If I'm following somebody like, I follow some people that post adeniums, a type of plant that I really like. Well, when they start posting a ton of photos of things that have nothing to do with adeniums, I tend to unfollow them because that's not what I was interested in. It's not that I dislike them or I'm mad at them, it's just not what I'm interested in. So just keep those things in mind as you're building that following. And the bigger thing too, it takes time. Occasionally you'll come across someone who grew really, really fast, but for most people, it happens slowly over time. Avoid any follow for follow, share for share. Those do not work. You're not building people who are actually interested in your content. You're just getting numbers, and numbers don't mean anything if you don't have the interaction. So those are some tips for you. I mean, I could go on forever. There's so much stuff, but hi, Alejandro. One SGWW said, I live in El Paso. It's super hot and we have a swamp cooler. Ew. My finished acrylic paintings are sticking together. How can I protect them? Space is an issue. Well, don't stick them together. That's definitely can be a problem. You can put glassine because things don't stick to it. You can put that in between them. That can be a good idea. Make sure they're completely dry beforehand. I know what you mean with humidity and the heat, and I have to watch that with mine. I don't know if you can see behind me. I have this whole wall is just shelves of painting. Some are empty canvases I haven't painted and some are finished. I put mine in, or put fabric around them, so I basically make a big pillowcase. And that helps keep them apart. So I don't ever rest touching acrylic, because that will happen. I mean, no matter what the weather is, that can start happening. Acrylic is plastic. Plastic will get sticky, it can stick together like that. So something in between glassine is really good. It's GLASSINE if you're looking at that up. But that stuff is really good. It's archival, acid-free, so it's not going to hurt anything. But you want to make sure that whatever is under there is completely, completely dry. The different types of paint that you use, I've seen some paint, it almost like reactivates. It kind of gets weird. So I'd be even afraid having glassine touching it for too long. And I can understand the problem with wall space. So here, the brush strokes that I'm making, they're kind of short. I'm just overlapping. You can see that they're fairly translucent, and I'm just overlapping. See how it's clumps and clusters where I get areas that are a little bit darker showing through. I'm not trying to cover this completely. That's good. That little bit of texture is actually going to be a benefit to me in the long run. And I've got to pull this color over a lot of the orange. I don't like this is a bit too red. So I'm going to pull this color, my raw Sienna, is going to go right into a lot of that. But I'm just looking constantly at my reference photo. Where does that hair change color? Now this brush is slightly damaged, and so the bristles are starting to kind of do this, and so it's almost working like a rake brush. One brush is giving me a whole bunch of brush strokes. Yeah, Donna, you will not regret the brush and pencil thing. Watch the video on how to mix it. My big tip with that, don't mix very much of it. It dries so fast. Mix a teeny tiny amount, use it, mix more, use it, mix more as you're going. Don't try to mix a whole bunch at once. Notori said, speaking of hair, how do you find the clumps and clusters on someone with very long straight hair? Just look at the I mean, it's hard without, I don't have a photo in front of me. Maybe theirs is more solid, but you're usually in that case going to have highlights. Where are the highlights? Where's the light hitting the hair? Where are the shadows? You're looking at lights and darks. In that case, a little bit more than clumps and clusters, depending on the hair. But even then, you'll usually have where one strand, kind of a chunk comes this way, and then another chunk comes this way. Watch those. They may be bigger clumps and clusters, but they're normally still there. You'll occasionally have someone, especially with dark hair, that's super, super sleek, where you don't see a whole lot of that. But in that case, just watch your highlights. Where are your highlights? Where are your shadows? And you may want to hype up that contrast a bit more from whatever the reference photo is. If you aren't really seeing, if there's not that much contrast in that reference photo, if it almost looks solid dark, pull it into Lightroom or Photoshop and mess with your settings and see if you can brighten some of that up so that you can see where the lights and darks would go. I did that recently on the Beetlejuice portrait that I did, or Beetlejuice inspired. It wasn't really Beetlejuice. I hyped it up that I messed with the hair a lot in Photoshop so that I could see, and then the stripes on the clothing, so that I could see which, sorry, I'm getting distracted by my clumps and clusters here. But so that I could see where the lights and darks were, because the clothing, the black, everything was just solid black. I couldn't see the highlights, but I wanted there to be highlights. So I messed with it in Lightroom to pull that out so that I could see them. So that there's still usually, though, with hair, even when it's sleek, will be some clumps and clusters, just less. Oh, and scroll too far. One second, I'm just scrolling to try to find where I just scratched my nose and it felt, I felt cold. I'm like, oh, did I just get paint all over my face? Let's see. Art Lover said, what about white oil paint over colored pencils? Is that archival? It can be, but it can also mess with the paper. It depends on did you gesso the paper first? You'll probably be okay. It's not a good choice because it doesn't dry right away. You can't keep working. It would have to be like your last thing, and in which case, why, if you've got just oil paint, I don't see the benefit of mixing those two that much, but the oils will soak weird into the paper. The results can be a little bit weird. It also will make the oils in the oil paint will blend out, kind of like what odorless mineral spirits would do in a weird, you can get some weird effects. So it wouldn't be my first choice. I'm not sure how that'll affect the paper long term. Alejandro said, how do you build a reputation, market your work? Do you expose your work somewhere? When I started with local art galleries and coffee shops. I don't know that I built a reputation or anything like that at that point, but that's where I started getting my initial experience. And it was good. I mean, I learned a lot from doing that. So, I mean, basically anywhere that would display my work when I was younger, I took that opportunity. So I'm more picky now, but anywhere you can do that is a good thing. And social media is just so amazing for artists now. It's so much easier because we're not limited to our location anymore. So, I mean, I hear people say, well, no one in my area buys art. But we have the internet. We don't need that anymore. So yeah, the internet is just a really big thing, and just being consistent, producing a lot of things. I think this is something that a lot of people miss out on, or miss too. I've known of artists who will produce one. Heck, I was one of these artists for a very long time. One painting a month, one drawing a month, one thing a month. And while some artists, and I can think of a couple off the top of my head who do well that way and it works, most people, that doesn't work for us. Most of us need to constantly produce more. You can't just produce one painting in, I think, gosh, there were times where I'd do one in 3 months. That doesn't cut it. That you've got to produce more often. If you're really trying to build a reputation for yourself, you've got to constantly be relevant. You've got to constantly be posting. And if you're not, people lose interest. It doesn't matter how amazing your painting or drawing your last one was. They're going to forget about it right after they look at it. If you want to stay relevant, if you want to stay, you know, where people are paying attention to you, you've got to be posting a lot. So maybe you're just posting constantly with in progress work, that works, or, you know, motivation stuff, that works too. But you've definitely got to be producing a fair amount of work. Producing one amazing thing and thinking that that's, you know, you've now made it. Like, I think that's a big misconception too with artists. They think that one thing happens and they make, you know, the right person saw my work and now I'm famous and I made it, and it just doesn't work that way. You have to constantly produce. You've got to constantly be working to stay in your your fans or your viewers' eyes, however you want to look at it. I always feel weird using the term fan. That seems odd to me. But social media is a big deal now. Debbie said, can you give some suggestions for painting fur on an animal that is completely black? I struggle getting depth using variation of black, gray, and white. Okay, so first, the gray and the white, you're probably not going to want to use a whole lot of with black. For when you use gray and white for your highlights on black fur, you end up making the animal look old. So instead, blues and purples. There's my biggest tip for you. Blues, purples, magenta, blue being the big one. If you do a search, or even go to my website under my gallery, just lachri.com under the gallery, there's a black leopard. Look at that one. Look at all the colors that I used. Gray wasn't in there very much. If you use gray, and this is going to be the same if you're drawing a person that has black hair and you're trying to use white as the highlight, you end up making them look old. You don't end up making them look shiny. So you want to watch that. Use lots of colors. Like bold, be bold with that. The black fur, as long as the fur is clean, it's going to be very shiny and it'll reflect what's around it. If you don't catch that shine quite right, you can end up making them look dusty and dirty. And that's like back to the gray and white. You probably, if you've used much with gray and white, glaze, or if you're working with colored pencils, go ahead and put tints of like blues and purples on top of it. That will make a huge, huge difference for you. Sarah said, I've tried lamp black in the Amsterdam Standard series line, and it's super intense. I wouldn't call it translucent at all. Yeah, see, it varies from company to company. So their lamp black may be similar to what another company is calling Mars black. So I want to say it's Winsor & Newton lamp black was really translucent. So it's hard to say for certain, but Mars black traditionally is considered darker. Or I would say darker, I mean more opaque. Ursi said, Celestial Seasons makes a good straight raspberry tea. Oh. I may have to look into that. I usually just buy Stash. I'm like so hooked on their teas. And then if you buy them on Amazon, you can get a box of 100 for like super cheap. And I drink so much iced tea that works out really well for me. Brent said, I was going to say I post Bob Ross quotes on days I don't post art. See, that's perfect. And Bob Ross, I got a book I need to post it one of these days, but I found it in not an art store, just a bookstore. It's like a little Bob Ross book. And it has his painting and then like little sayings he's said and quotes and motivational stuff. I quote that book all the time. Like it's really good. I love how many people he motivated to paint. Like whether you like his artwork or not, he did so much for the art world, like to get people painting, which I love. Now notice here how I'm starting to elongate these brush strokes because this fur is starting to get a lot longer, and I'm gonna have to actually lighten that up with some more unbleached titanium white because this does start to get lighter here. So I'm just gonna mix some of that in there with some water. CJ said, as an art critique or advice giver, how would you go about giving advice for abstract art? balance. You've still got to balance. You've still got to learn your medium. One of the problems that a lot of people have with abstract art is I've known of a lot of students who decided they were going to do abstract not because they liked it, but because they felt they couldn't draw and they didn't want to learn to draw. So like I've seen that over the 20 years of me teaching. I've actually seen that quite a bit. Like when you start asking questions like, okay, well, what was it you're looking for? But for abstract, it's not what a lot of people will do where they think that they can just get away with throwing paint on the canvas and that's good. Yeah, it's abstract. You are technically still abstract, but it's not necessarily well balanced. You still have to have an understanding of, you know, the weight of different objects or different colors and contrast, and understanding how to just create a good balance of things. So I think that that's still something that you've really got to watch with abstract. It's not what a lot of people think, that to do well you can just throw paint and paint with your feet. Okay, some people do that and it actually works out for them, but usually like a good abstract, or at least a good abstract that I look at and think, wow, that would look amazing on my wall, there's a balance to it, whether it be a balance of the color, the values, the colors, the hue, I mean, so many things that still go into that to do well. And too many people think because it's abstract they can just do anything and it's all the same, and I don't think it is. I think I don't know as far as how to go about giving advice on it, but that would be like my big advice for anyone who is getting into abstract is it's not as easy as you think it is. You still have to pay attention to values, contrast, all of that stuff. Phyllis said, what kind of flower did you just mention? I've never heard of it. Just curious. Did I mention a flower? The timeline is always so delayed by the time I get to the questions. I'm like, what flower did I mention? Was it the adenium? That was the plants, although they are flowers too. Maybe that was what it was. It was probably the adenium. It's a type of plant that has a really wide base and really cool roots. So I'm guessing that's probably what I mentioned. I could be wrong. LOL9 wants me to adopt them. That's funny. I don't know. Do you clean? Because if you did, maybe. Scrappy Cat Meyer said, Inktense question. I'm trying to use Inktense and do final detail. Unfortunately, even after drying overnight, the color is reactivating with water. It turned out mud. What am I doing wrong? Okay, I'm guessing usually when that happens, you applied either the pencil or the block directly to the paper. Like took the pencil, went over it, added water, and then thought that was good. What's happening is when you went over it with water, you're not really activating as much of it as you thought you did. So when you go over it again, that's reactivating, and that's where that mud is coming. So when you see me paint, usually I mix the color separately and I'm applying it with the paintbrush on there, so it is completely dissolved. All the pigment is dissolved. So that's why it never reactivates on me. But if you take the pencil, like anywhere where I have taken the pencil and gone straight onto the paper with that can reactivate. So I just have to be aware of where that happened and be careful as I'm blending, knowing that there's a good chance that I didn't completely dissolve it when I went over it with water the previous layer. So in your case, it's not likely an issue of it not being dry enough. It's an issue of you didn't activate all of the pigment, and when you went over it again with water, it reactivated then. Lilo wants to know if I will ever paint a mermaid in an ocean scene. Yes, absolutely. I have before, and I really want to do it again. Brittany wants to know if I've ever considered doing tattoos. No. Getting tattoos, yes. Doing them myself, absolutely not. That is so permanent, and here, there's nothing I can do I can't fix. Cannot say that when you're tattooing, so no. Plus, I don't like touching people. It weirds me out, so I'm a freak. Let's see. I missed a whole bunch of questions. Hold on, I'm scrolling back up to get caught up a bit. Do I glass seam the inside of the felt covers? You know what? I don't, but it honestly wouldn't be a bad idea. But mine have so far been fine that way. Tamara said, on average, roughly how long does an acrylic painting take you to paint? Just out of curiosity. This one, let's say I sat down 8 hours a day and just really focused, like was absolutely focused and wasn't sitting here talking. I could probably have this done in 3 days. 2. I could have it done in 2. I could easily, like, when I've done, the few times I've gone and done or conventions where I was working, painting, like, I was there, I guess, entertainment for the booth, and sat and painted, I paint too fast, and I get things done, like, I'll think that I've got something super detailed that's going to take me forever. It doesn't. The only reason that things here at home take me so long is I easily get distracted and don't sit and pay attention, but, like, if I sit and really focus, yeah, this would probably take me 2 days, like, maybe 8 to 10 hour days, if that. I don't even know if it would take me that long. That's for an acrylic painting. Acrylics are the fastest, just because I'm not fighting a dry time. And then with the airbrush, Max said, hi Lisa, is it okay to use Inktense as an underpainting or a watercolor and then use polychromos and Lyra blended with OMS? Yes, as long as that is down first. You can put the water-based products down and then oil and wax-based pencils on top. Not a problem at all. So definitely. Oh, and I just scrolled too far. There we go. Phyllis said, that is the plant you mentioned. Thanks. Cool. Yeah, I'm obsessed with my adeniums right now. I just got a new one, and I'm having a hard time because the last one that was my favorite, he rotted, like, overnight. I don't even know. Like, it shouldn't have happened. I still don't know for sure. Like, usually it's from overwatering, but that wasn't the case here. I don't know what happened. So now I have a new one, and I repotted it, and I'm not sure if it was a good idea or not. But he is not, his base is getting a little soft, which concerns me. So I just have to wait it out, and hopefully, I don't know if it was from underwatering in this case because I put him in soil that dries out faster. I don't know. But it makes me nervous. So, like, several times a day I keep going out and, like, squeezing to see if the base is still soft or if it's firming up at all. I'm a dork. Sugarberry Baby said, should we use a watermark over our art when we post to social media? I recommend it. The only time I don't is when it's like something that you isn't going to be able to make prints out of, in progress stuff, that sort of thing I don't really worry about. But even then, it's not a bad idea to do, just because if somebody retweets that, like, let's say they're not just trying to steal your work, they just want to share it. If you've got your watermark on it, people, if someone sees it and is like, wow, that's amazing, but the person forgot to tag who they got it from, that can build more traffic back to your site. So, like, put your Twitter handle or your website or something on it where people can find you. Yes, I recommend it. And I've had enough of my work stolen by people that were making prints out of it. I absolutely believe in watermarking. You know, yeah, it can be photoshopped out. I know how to Photoshop it out. I've had to do it on my own work where I couldn't find a copy that didn't have a watermark on it when I needed one that way. But it's what is it? My mom always says it keeps the honest. I mean, you lock your doors, but you know someone could still break in if they really wanted in bad enough, but it's still safer to go ahead and lock the doors anyway. And that's basically what the watermark is. Yeah, someone can still steal it. Someone can still cause problems for you, but it's better than nothing. And then if you do, like, your Twitter or your Instagram handle or something like that, I think that it's just adding to getting more attention if someone does take it and reshare it. So, yes, I personally strongly recommend it. I've had people get mad at me for it, like, oh, it's ruining the experience, and I'm like, well, you've never had your artwork stolen. When you have your work stolen, you kind of change your outlook on that. So here, still just really watching. I'm not worrying about my color right now, and I think that that's a big thing. If I had to sit here and worry about the shift, like here needs to be more orange and then fade to light, if I had to sit and worry about that right now, it gets a bit overwhelming. So instead, I'm just going for a color that's semi-close, and I'm going to glaze and tint the color later. So all I have to worry about right now is getting the fur going in about the right direction. You know, the clumps and clusters going right. And then the glaze, where I tinted it, will also cause all of these hairs to soften out a lot, which is what I want, because these are a bit too harsh. Eduardo said, I purchased the 24 tin of Faber-Castell after seeing your videos, but I feel quite short in the color range. Could you recommend some essential colors like sepia, creams? Or no, that's going to, I don't know what colors come in the 24 set. The Caput Mortem, I never say that right, but it's something like that. It starts with a C. Mortium, I don't know. That color is like on my must-have list, but the rest of them, it really just depends on what you're looking for. So unfortunately, I can't give you a list. I like having all of them. So I don't even know which ones I would say you are must-haves besides that one. I really use the light flesh, the cinnamon, and the dark flesh quite a bit in portraits, but I don't use them alone. I mix them with other colors. So it really just depends on what you want for what you're working on. I mean, it's almost like asking somebody, what color should I paint my bedroom? What do you like? I mean, you know, that's kind of what it comes down to with the different pencils. Aw, thanks, Leela. LOL9 said, do you like to draw anime? I've never really gotten into anime or cartoons and I know someone's going to get mad at me for associating those two together. I know it's different, kind of. But no, I never really got into that. When I started drawing when I was younger, I always was wanting to make things look more realistic. So even when I was a kid working in coloring books, I would try to fix the coloring books to make the animals look more realistic. So yeah, anything like the more stylized work was never really my thing. I respect it. I like watching other people do it, but it's not one that I've done. Like there's an artist, Sakums, Sakums, I think. She's French. She does a lot of different anime type characters that she's amazing. I follow her on Twitter. It comes up. She's here on YouTube too. She makes some really neat, like if you like anime stuff, check her stuff out. She's got some cool stuff. Judy said, what brushes are you using to paint the fur? Okay, so this kind of sucks because this was a generic Master's Touch, so generic Hobby Lobby brush. I don't even know what type of bristles these technically are. The brush doesn't say, and it was discontinued. I got it on clearance, and I wish I would have bought every single one they have. I've been using this brush for probably 6 years, and I love it, and it's getting frayed. But it's essentially the equivalent of a very small rake brush because the bristles are frayed like this right now. So that's what I'm using right now. I strongly recommend when you start having brushes get damaged, don't throw them out. Unless it's like hard as a rock and you can't use it at all. And even those I keep. Because I can use that to mix paint or stir, different things. But hang on to your damaged brushes. Because in a case like this, it may end up being one of your favorites. I use this brush all the time. It just sucks because I can't run out and buy the same thing because they don't make it anymore. I'm sure there's another brush that's similar. I just haven't found it myself. Like, there's no way there's not. I just don't know what it would be. Notori said, how many hours a day would you say you spend actually painting, not counting the business stuff, social media? It's about 4 hours. 3 to 4 hours is probably what I do now. Sometimes more. Sometimes a lot more. Like Friday, no. I take it back. I didn't spend more than that on Friday. I planned on it, but I actually got done so quickly I didn't need to. Yeah, 3 to 4 hours. Sometimes I'll do 5. There have been days where I'll do 8, but I would say normally 3 to 5 is pretty average for me. Scroll to bar. Man, there it goes. Don said, thank you for the bokeh and bird lesson. I had so much fun painting it. I hope one day you do a blurry acrylic background without an airbrush, hint, hint. Well, that's the same technique. That one, I'm glad you liked it. But that one, the reason that I wanted to do that one and released it before I finished this one is that the techniques I showed you on blending, and those of you who have not seen it, it's over on Patreon right now, but I will have a sped up version on YouTube in the next couple of weeks, so you will see that soon. But, so don't feel too left out. But the edges, like here where it's kind of blurry, you're going to do the same thing that I did with that brush, where I apply it with one brush and then I take the stiff brush and just smudge it out. Same thing. So same exact thing. It's actually a little bit easier because you're not trying to actually do circles. Also, please tag me in it if you posted that on social media. I'd love to see how yours came out. Sarah said Bob Ross was inspired by an artist named Bill Alexander who had a show on PBS in the 70s called Magic of Oil Painting. Bill was who Bob first saw use the wet on wet technique. Cool. Madison said, I've gotten my wildlife with colored pencils and OMS to be very realistic. Thanks to you. Oh, that's awesome. I want to get into portraits more, but I don't know how dark I should go before I lighten up. It depends on how you want to work. I mean, there's no real answer to that. Everybody's going to be a bit different. I go fairly dark. I mean, okay, it's always easier to go lighter and then make it darker as you go. But keep in mind, most people have a tendency to make their portraits too light. Like, you would not believe the amount of white Will Smiths I've seen come through my critique submissions because people are afraid to go too dark. And in that case, I mean, here's somebody who should have really nice dark skin, but people are too afraid that they're going to go too dark and they end up making him look like the wrong race altogether. So that's really, really common with portraits. Usually, you need to go darker than what you think you need to do. So there's my tip for that. But it depends. I mean, with me, I go pretty dark And then lighten with my opaque, lighter, like Luminance or the Derwent Drawing Chinese White. I'll lighten it with that. So that's why I go so dark to start with, knowing I'm going to lighten it up, and then that's what's going to smooth it out for me too. So it just depends on what techniques you're using. Kelly said, I would like to add to my colored pencil collection. I currently have polychromos. Can you recommend another set? I can't afford to invest in Luminance just yet. Right now, my favorite, which isn't going to be a full set because it's only 36, are the Derwent Lightfast pencils. I will have the review of that up in the next couple of weeks, but I love those pencils. If nothing else, when they're available open stock, they may be now, or maybe it's September. I forget the date. I need to look that up again. But those pencils are so nice. The thing is, they're very limited colors, but if you've already got polychromos, it's a good set to add to it. Another set that I really like, I sound like an advertiser for Derwent right now, but it's a set of 24, and these ones are actually fairly inexpensive, are the Derwent drawing pencils. They're very muted colors, but oh, they blend so nice. I love those. So that may be a good one to go with too, especially if you're looking for a more wax-based. And the Derwent, the Lightfast pencils, they're supposed to be oil-based, or they say that they're oil-based, but they feel very waxy to me. So they're not, like, they're going to be a big difference between that and your polychromos, which may be a good fit. But like I said, there's only 36 colors, and they're kind of expensive right now. They're all Lightfast 1 on the ASTM scale, so that's why they're so expensive, but they're really good. Madison said, using your technique with blending the white over darker skin. I feel like I missed part of that question. I think I definitely missed part of that question. I apologize. Oh, and that scrolled too far. Valerie said, did you see that the Samsung Galaxy Tab S4 is supposedly available this Friday? Can't wait. Oh, wow. I haven't even reviewed the S3 yet. I'm definitely going to end up buying that one too, though, because I want to review both and compare both, but I don't know. I may wait for it a bit because my S3 is still so, like, it's brand new, so it still runs and works beautifully. So I'm curious. I'm glad you're going to get it though, because you can tell me, since you already have the S3, which one, if I should run out and buy the S4 right away or not. That's been like one of those things I've saved money for though. I'm ready to get one, even though I still love my S3. Brittany said, should you always price by size, or can you price higher for better pieces or things that you spent much more time on? Yeah, I have a base based on size, but there are times where I put way more work into something. I'm going to charge more for that. A more elaborate background, I'm going to charge a bit more for that. So, that's, now if I put that kind of detail into all my work, then it makes sense that all my prices would be the same. But if sometimes I just put 3 times more work into this project, I'm going to charge more for that. So that's okay too. Yeah, you can go by time a bit on that, or how much detail you've put. I've done it on several occasions. I have a colored pencil piece that was done with a turtle and coral and such, and that one I'm definitely not going to let go for. I've got him priced quite a bit more than what I typically do for that size, but I spent way more time on him. He was 3 weeks of work versus 1 week. It doesn't make sense to only charge for 1 week worth of work if I put 3 weeks into it, So yeah, you can adjust your prices if needed. If something came out that you just don't want to let go, or it's for less, or you put more time into, I don't see anything wrong with that. Like, I have my standard for my standard amount of time, like something like this I could have done technically in 3 days, although I've been spending weeks on it because I haven't sat down and focused. But if I did like this crazy detailed background that I spent an additional 2 weeks on, I'm going to charge for that. But if I didn't, if I left it my standard, then it's going to be my standard price per square inch. Art Lover said, in the polychromo set, what are your favorite grays, warm grays, cold grays, Payton's gray, and what colors and polychromos do you go over black with? All of them? I don't think I have a favorite. It depends on what I'm working on. Some things require warm gray, some things require a cool gray. So, that's the wrong side of that brush. It's a double-sided brush. I do that all the time. So there's just, I don't really have a good answer for you, because it depends on what I'm working on, what that answer is going to be, and what do I go over black with. Like if I want my black to be darker, usually either purples, reds, or blues are my usual. Sometimes a violet color, which I guess could fall into the purple category. CJ Carl said, in your experience, what platform has enabled you to grow as a professional artist the most, and how could they help you more in exposure? YouTube, hands down, I think has been the most amazing. Facebook for a while did good, but when they've changed their algorithm, so right now Facebook is just meh. Instagram's doing good, but I still, YouTube, like hands down, is just leaps and bounds above the other platforms that I've used since I hit things. They YouTube has been absolutely the best. What could they do to help in more in exposure? It's, well, I mean, it's YouTube. They're Google. They're going to come up on search engines. And a lot of people like to watch videos, so it's more interesting, I think, than just blog posts. I used to just do blog posts, and those didn't get nearly the traffic that YouTube does. Oh, hold on, this has a weird section. Okay, that black is going to have to come down. I have to talk to myself through this because I'm losing my place on my stripes again. This is where it turned into a hot mess of what was I looking at, because none of this looks right. I'm going to have to add some more black stripes in there. But they're definitely just the search function. It makes it easy for people to find you. And then people get to know you, because like I'm sitting here actually talking to you guys. If it was a blog post, it's not as, like, you don't feel like you're getting to know that person as much as you would on a video, and I think that's a big deal too. Same thing with like Instagram posts or whatever. I mean, yeah, we can take quick videos of ourselves, but it's not the same as a YouTube video. So that really made a difference. Just how easy it is for people to find you on YouTube. So many people use the platform. So many people are searching things. And then with YouTube too, their suggested posts where you're watching one video and you've got a line of suggested videos that are similar. How often do you click on those? Pretty often. And so that alone, it increases how much people are going to see you, versus, let's say they were on one website. It's probably not going to suggest your website from that website. But on YouTube, that happens. And I think that's a big deal on why that helps with your exposure so much. I wish YouTube would go back to the way they used to and notify people when your videos went up, but it's still a great platform. It's still, in my opinion, the best out there. YouTube and Instagram right now are my favorites. Instagram will change as they start adopting more, since they're owned by Facebook. I'm sure they'll go the way of Facebook and really limit. They're already starting to. They've been doing it, limiting what you see of your friends' posts. So I'm not a huge fan of that. But for now, those two are my favorite. But YouTube, by far. Okay, Donna will tag me in her or it wasn't a chickadee, it was a blue tit. I couldn't put a list in the name, and I'm not going to be able to on the video on YouTube, because it's a blue tit and that word is going to get flagged as being inappropriate. So I'm going to have to just call it a little bird. I keep wanting to call it a chickadee. Ian Jackson, whoops, I just missed it. At least I said the name, so I know where I have to scroll up to. Ian Jackson said, question, is it worth using anything other than cheap brushes? Oh, yeah. I mean, some of those nice, expensive brushes are worth it. They're really nice to work on. But at the same time, like with me, I'm so used to the cheap ones that I'm okay with them. I have a feeling, though, if I had a good, expensive brush that I really loved, that, like, I mean, I don't care how much it costs. I just want a good brush. So I'm sure that there are expensive ones that I would absolutely love using. I actually need to try some of the Rosemary and Company brushes. I've heard great things about hers or theirs. Hers, is that right? I don't know if it's just a brand name or an actual person. But those are more expensive, I think, than what I use. I don't know if they'd be worth it or not. But, I mean, gosh, some of the brushes that I use are super, like, I mean, this brush here, I got in a pack of 20 brushes, I think, in a canvas holder for like $12.99. So cheap. The tops, this one's still attached. These come off half the time. I have to shove them back on. I've gotten more use out of these brushes, though, for the techniques I use. Like, I can't just use these. I use them in combination with other things, but I don't know. But the cheap ones just, you get used to manipulating them and doing what you want. If I used a more expensive brush, a different brush, anytime you switch to a different brush, you're going to like have to adjust your techniques around that. So is it worth it? Possibly, I guess. It depends on who you ask, I think. LOL9 said, can you a tutorial on city lights from afar with colored pencils? If I get a good reference photo, I may. That sounds like a lot of work, though. I avoid, honestly, city scenes like that because there's so much work. They look amazing when you do them right, but so much work. Susan said, what is the palette that you are using? Stay Wet. I am painting a tiger that you had in your Patreon. It's so dark at the bottom jaw. What do you do when you can't make it out? Oh, two parts of the question. Let's just answer the first part. The palette I'm using is a Masterson. It's in the video description. Masterson is the outside, the like Tupperware, and then it's a New Wave glass palette inside. It is not Stay Wet. I don't like the Stay Wet. They're it's not the same brand, or well, this part I think is the same one, or Masterson makes a similar one anyway. But I don't like the way that when you paint on a wet surface, it's like it makes the paint really, really weird. It's just not my preference. I like the glass palette. So I just scrape it off. Like this is starting to dry, so I'll just scrape it off. It's super easy to clean. It just works really well for me. As far as I'm painting the tiger that you had in your Patreon, it's so dark at the bottom jaw. What do you do when you can't make it out? Well, if it's the reference photo, if you've got that same reference photo and you can't make it out, I will either take it into Lightroom or Photoshop and do a little bit of editing, so that I can make it out, because sometimes when you can lighten up the contrast and make it so that you can see things that you really couldn't see before. So adjusting things in Photoshop or any photo editor can sometimes make a big difference. Adjust the contrast, adjust the exposure, and adjust your shadows and highlights and all of that. That can really, really make a difference for you to be able to see things. And then if I still can't see it, I will just do a regular, like a Google search, and see if I can find a photo that's a tiger in a similar position, and copy that one. Like in that case, you're not copying the whole thing. You're just getting an idea where you couldn't see the details in this area. So you can use the, another reference photo just to see things better. And I do that a lot. Like if somebody hires you to do a pet portrait and you just can't see, like the photo is good, but something is just super dark and you can't see the detail in there, you can find another photo that you can look at. Now here's the other thing. Sometimes if something's so dark that you can't see the detail, maybe it doesn't need the detail. Maybe it just needs to be that dark, and that's what's going to look better. So keep that in mind too. Brent said, Derwent has taken over my artwork. Yeah, me too. Love that company more and more every time I draw something. You know, I'm really impressed with them because I feel like they just keep improving. I love, like, they talk to us artists. They talk to like, a lot of us to find out what we like, what we don't like, what we're looking for. And it's like they really want to make products that we want. And that is a big deal to me. Like, I really like, this is an outside fringe, just kind of getting a hint of where that's going to go. I really like that they care what we want. And that I mean, like, okay, the Derwent Pro Color. Loved those pencils, but they weren't all light fast. So what did they do? They went and made a light fast set of pencils that are actually very similar in performance to the Pro Color. I mean, they listen to us, which I love. And it feels like they just keep making more and more products that are just getting better and better all the time. I'm a huge fan of them. And I also like, and this has nothing to do with that, but I love that, like, when I reviewed their Color Soft colored pencils, you guys know I hated them. They don't work with my technique. They work for some people's techniques, but for how I work, not a fit. So I didn't like them. They don't get mad. They don't tell me, like, never say anything about our products. Like, they are fine with me telling you guys what I find to be the positives and negatives of the stuff. Like, they're not, like, they don't get angry about that, which is, I don't know, I just have a lot of respect for that company all around. I like a lot of their products. I don't like all of them, but they don't get mad that I don't like all of them, so that's pretty good. Valerie said, Valerie, you're on the S2 tablet. Oh, well, you can't compare that much for me yet. I just got the S3 a few months ago, so I got it knowing that the S4 would come out, and I would end up giving this tablet to my husband, and then I would take the S4, but I've hardly used it, and I'm like, it's like brand new, and I love it, so I'm a bit hesitant to upgrade yet. I'll see. Notori said, thanks for answering my questions. Last one, the $9 plus Patreon art challenge group. Is it mostly for people doing realism, or can an impressionist join too? It's for anybody. You can do an impressionistic version of the lesson, because it depends on what the lesson is. Sometimes it's not, I say lesson, but I don't want to give you the impression that it's like a full lesson. It's little tips on accomplishing something. So like this month's, we're focusing on values and creating shadows with certain colors, and you can totally do that impressionistically. Like that would actually be a really good medium for doing that. There's no reason you couldn't. So it depends, but sometimes the lesson is about creating something that looks more realistic. So it really just depends on what it is. But with the Patreon challenge, it's not like our open group challenge on our Facebook group. It's if you don't like that month's challenge, you can do any of the past challenges. So you've got plenty to choose from. Ursi said, oh, and the other thing too, you could also, if you didn't want to do that challenge, you could just instead for the challenge do one of our Patreon reference photos, and you could do that in impressionistic. So you've got a lot of freedom. Thanks, Ursi's. Let's see. Oh, and scroll too far. Like I get it to stop. The scroll, the chat is in a perfect spot, and then it just shoots up. Nancy says Rosemary is a real person. Good to know. Yeah, I've heard really good things about her brushes. Zara said, on YouTube, you also reach people who do not read much. Yep, that's true too. Good point. Wolf Girl said, do you think you could do one of your live stream videos at another time once or twice? Because I'm currently watching at 3 or 4 in the morning. Oh no, it makes it hard for me to watch. Yes, sometimes I do them on Saturdays. Well, usually those are the Patreon ones that are earlier. But, yeah, I'm sure I eventually will. Right now, this just fits in well with my schedule. But yeah, I'm sure I will. 3 or 4 in the morning. I'd still be awake, though. I'm nocturnal. Those are my normal hours still. I do get tired by then, though. Donna said, I have to laugh when you start talking about losing your lines and what you were looking at. I'm doing a colored pencil of my torty cat. Totally understand. Oh, my gosh. Yeah, all those stripes, you're going to lose your place constantly. So you know it's a normal feeling. That's what I'm doing right now. See how I'm just kind of going slowly? I'm just kind of building where these stripes are going to go. And if I miss one, it's no big deal. I can go back and paint it over. It's not like with acrylics. That's one of the things that I love about this medium. It is so forgiving. It is not a hard thing to go back and fix things at all. Like at all. You just paint right over it. So you want to watch, because as you get into this area of the cat, you're going to have the fur get much, much shorter. So don't try to force in too much detail because it won't look right. It will sometimes look better if things are just very, very smooth. Joe said, I've wanted to try Rosemary and Company brushes for years, but they're on an arm and a leg to ship from the UK. Yeah, see, I haven't even looked at how much shipping would be. I don't know, does Blick carry them or anyone else carry them? Anna said, how well developed as an artist should you be before you start looking at buying more expensive brushes? What would you recommend someone start with? Honestly, okay, I still use what are considered fairly cheap. I mean, I get them at Hobby Lobby and Michael's for the most part. Simply Simmons, Hobby Lobby's generic brushes, Michael's generic brushes. I like all of those. Royal Soft Grip brushes. I like those. I've got some, what are they? Why can't I think of the name right now? Low Cornell brushes that are really nice. None of these are super expensive brushes, and I like them all pretty well. But I wouldn't recommend someone go cheaper than that. You can hit a point where the brushes are so ineffective that you can't even learn, like bristles falling out, the wrong, like not springy where they should be springy, or too soft, or, stuff like that, that I wouldn't go too cheap. But like I said, I mean, some of these brushes I've got are super cheap, so it's not necessarily about money. I think find the right brushes, but I wouldn't go cheaper than what I'm using. Anything, I'm already using about as cheap as you can go. So, but I've seen brushes that came in different kits that the bristles just fall out all over as you're painting. That could be a problem. And I think generally when it comes to art supplies, I don't usually tell people to start out with super beginner art supplies or stuff intended for beginners, because it can make it harder for you to learn. Start with something that's decent. Now, the acrylics that I'm using, these are Liquitex Basics. They're pretty cheap, but they're also good. They're archival. Everything's good there. Winsor & Newton oil paints, not super expensive. I mean, they're on the cheap end, but they're still good. They still work. So I don't even use super expensive stuff, but I wouldn't go cheaper than that. Like Reeves, I hate Reeves. I hate, actually Low Cornell, I don't like. I think they've got some paints, or I've had some. I don't know if they still do. They were terrible. They didn't work for the techniques that I used at all. So I wouldn't recommend that, because you can't really learn if you're trying to do a certain glazing technique, but the previous layer keeps lifting off where it shouldn't. You can't learn how to do the glazing technique then. So I don't recommend in general with supplies to go too cheap, even when you're learning. Mara said, when you know an animal is male or female, do you find you paint them differently because of their sex? Not at all. I copy what I see, honestly. On the reference photo, that's what I'm looking at. It doesn't make any difference to me at all. What the photo is what the photo is to me. And do you remember the animal's name because of this? No, I'm more prone to remember animal names than I am people names. I used to work at an animal hospital and I always remembered the animal's name. So when the clients would come in, it was like, oh, how's Sugar doing today? Because I don't remember your name. So we'll just address the dog. You're happy because I paid attention. But I don't remember people names. But dog names I do. So it doesn't make any difference as far as that goes for me. Sarah Makes Art said, do you have any thoughts on YouTube Studio Beta? I love having the impressions and CTR data. It's okay. I don't use it that much. There's still a lot that until it's all working right. I probably don't pay enough attention to my analytics. I focus on just making the content that I want to make and listening to like what you guys say. If you like it or don't like something, I try to take that into account. Sometimes I just ignore people who dislike things, but I pay more attention to that usually than the analytics. The analytics, if you pay, they matter. But I also found if I paid too much attention to them, I started obsessing over them, and it wasn't helping me at all. Like I was getting too obsessive over numbers instead of just creating content. Christine said, do you think you can learn something new from art books when you can get a lot of information on YouTube? Any art book recommendations? Yeah, absolutely. And everybody's going to have a different way that they prefer to learn. Some people are going to learn better by listening to somebody speak to them. Some people are going to learn better by seeing that same information in print. So it's going to depend on the person altogether. But yeah, there's definitely things in books. I know Aliona Nicholson, she has her colored pencil Bible and the new one, the brush and pencil one, or the powder blender one, the portraits one. If you look up Aliona Nicholson, it'll come up. She's the one who invented the powder blender. I love her colored pencil books. And even still, I'll read stuff and I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. She's the one who I learned about using the Scotch tape trick where you could lift colored pencil off with that. That's how I learned that was in that book. And that was after I'd watched videos before. I just hadn't seen that in a video before I read it in her book. So yeah, there are definitely good art books out there. I don't have a lot that I can think of off the top of my head besides hers. Hers are like one of my favorites. Color and Light by is it James Gurney? I think that is. Someone correct me. That's a great book. And it's not something where like I read it and it changed my world and everything. And I don't mean that book. I mean any book that I was just like, oh my God, my artwork is now forever way more amazing. It's like sometimes that you can read a book and you'll get one tip that is really good and that makes it worth the price of the book. So there was a colored pencil book that I got years ago on clearance, and it wasn't like it's not one I would necessarily recommend all my students run out and buy. It's not super, super helpful. It actually talks about a lot of mixed media with colored pencil. But it had the tip that told me to use odorless mineral spirits to blend. I'd never heard of that before. So this was, 15 years ago. And, oh my gosh, that just changed. Maybe not that long. Maybe. I don't remember. Numbers are hard. But, I mean, it made all the difference in the world. So whatever I paid for that book, it was worth it to learn I could use odorless mineral spirits to blend colored pencil. That was before there were YouTube videos. But, I mean, you sometimes get these little tips that are so amazing that definitely make it worth the cost of the book. Joe said, I've never seen them outside the Rosemary website. Oh, yeah, for those brushes. I've not even looked that much. I just see that a lot of people like them. Let's see. Whoops, and that scrolled too far. Oh, good. We are caught up. And just a reminder that I mentioned, if I can't talk now. Oh my gosh, I'm tired. Make sure to check out our moderators channel. Valerie and Joseph both have channels here on YouTube. The links are in the video description. Great channels. Go over, subscribe to them, say thank you because they help me so much. Both of them here on YouTube and over on our Facebook page. So great people, really cool channels. You should check them out. This fur kind of curves a little. The color is not, my color here is way too light, but that's okay. I can glaze that later. Just want to build up the fur texture. And I'm going pretty slow on this because I keep stopping to talk. But honestly, when you're really going and you just keep watching your reference photo, do a little section, look at your reference photo, do a little section, it goes pretty quickly. It's not as slow as what it seems on the live stream. Donna said, I have special needs animals that get into everything. I would like to start oil painting, but I worry about fumes, chemicals. How do I work that out with my pets? Well, my dogs, my dogs are, well, they actually don't, If I can handle oil paint, they can handle it. They've been fine. But when I'm, like, if I'm airbrushing and I don't want, because they're not going to wear a mask. Now, luckily, both of them sleep under the covers, so they'd be under the blankets, which works like wearing a mask. But if they're not, if they're walking around, they've got a crate, it's huge. I have a huge setup for them. And they're little dogs, so it's like a big, huge puppy den. But they can go in there, and that's actually what I do when the chicken comes out. The dogs, that's where they are right now. They're in their crate sleeping. They've got a big, comfy bed. They've got everything they need in there. So that works out really well. Crate training dogs is like, I'm super a big fan of. I think that it really helps a lot with, and especially when it comes to something like with keeping the dog safe. Like when I've been doing, like when I stained a table, I didn't want them in here because those fumes were super strong. So I could put them in their crate and make sure that they were safe. And they're perfectly comfortable out there. They like it. I mean, even when the door's open and they're free, that half the time they go lay in there anyway. They like that bed. But that works out really well for me. As far as the birds, they're kept in another room. When I used to have a cat, that was a hard thing with oil painting because she would climb into the palette. So that's when I ended up buying this palette. I used to just use a big open one, but I ended up getting this palette, my other one that years ago, because it has that lid I could put over it. Because when I would put the oil paint up when I wasn't painting, she kept getting into it, and that's definitely not safe. So that's being able to seal things off, close them, keeping lids on things that they can't get into. If you've got a dog who chews things up, they just need to be kept out of the room. I wouldn't want a dog who chewed up something that had like liquid in it, because that can't. I knew of one person whose dog drank or licked up a bunch of the liquid and that killed them. So you do want to be aware of that, and obviously keeping the animal safe is really important, but sometimes just keeping them out of the room is the best thing that you can do. I mean, that's chicken doesn't come in the studio if I've been oil painting or airbrushing or anything that has the fumes. I just don't bring them in here. So that is my advice there. Deb Lee said, do you paint tigers so often because you like them, because they sell well, or both? Because I like them. I just love the contrast with the stripes. I think they're just so gorgeous, such beautiful, and just their movement. I mean, when you watch them move, watch them walk, they're so just, they're just amazing. So yeah, I just am in love with them. But I feel that way about most big cats. Ever since I was a kid, I love big cats. Brent said, have you ever done a wood burning drawing? I used to do several, but they lost popularity. Actually, Valerie does them, and they're amazing. I used to work at Michael's. I was in charge of their classroom. I actually took charge of the classroom, not because I wanted to, but because the people who had previously been doing it kept screwing up the calendar and never, like, having other people teach during my teaching time, and it was an ongoing thing, or they wouldn't get the calendar out. So I was finally, when that position became open, I was like, screw it, I'll do it so it'll get done right. So I took over that. But one of the things that was really cool about that position is I had to demonstrate different products. This was right after 9/11, and they wanted to just help people kind of cope with the stress of everything that was going on. And they decided to have start having demonstrations. I don't know if they still do this or not, but back then they wanted demonstrations like twice a day, every day, I think. Was it 2 times a day? They had schedules that we were to have demonstrate, and so that was part of my job became doing these demonstrations, just different mediums, different projects. Like I got to do candle making, I got to do soap making, I got to do wood burning was one of them. But we got to try a lot of these products as we demonstrated. So that was actually really, really fun. I liked wood burning a lot. I loved the smell of it. I never went and bought the set to do it. I wanted to, but I was so broke at the time, so that was not in my budget. I may end up doing it. It's so gorgeous. I love, especially go look at the work Valerie does. Oh my gosh, it is amazing. And then she'll go over some of hers with watercolor and different things that just, wow. Donna says, thanks for the advice. I have 3 chihuahuas and 2 cats. Maybe I'll stick with acrylic for now. I mean, yeah, acrylic's definitely safer. I love oil paint, but you do have to be, you just have to be aware. It's, a lot of people don't like it all because of some of it being toxic. And some of the paints are non-toxic, but you still have your mixing mediums. You still have things that are something to be concerned with. I keep my paint up high enough, and my dogs are older, so they don't really get into stuff anyway. They're both seniors, so they mostly, well, They still play, but they, I mean, they don't really, they're not destructive. They don't get into stuff, so I don't really have to worry about them with that, or like with my plants, they don't mess with anything. But with a puppy or a younger dog, that definitely can be a concern, and you want to make sure that you can keep anything up out of their reach for sure. So see, this is, I mean, I've got all these colors on my palette. I'm really just focusing on these two. I can make it a little lighter, a little darker as needed, but I can block this in so that when I come through later in glaze, it'll be so easy. Like everything is mostly there. This is the tedious hard part. The rest, the stuff that starts making it look super realistic is actually really easy. I don't know why I've got a straight line going across there. I don't even know what that's supposed to be. We've got you come down, you go up. You're not even there. Go away. Get out of there. You're like... And then you're not here. What is going on there? What a mess I've created of these stripes. Like, I don't know what I was looking at when I drew these out. Clearly not the reference photo, because that's a mess. Vladimir said, would you let new art students buy cheap art supplies from the school or let them buy good quality art supplies for a higher price? I did not let my students use things that I wouldn't use. So, like, the cheapest they could go on acrylics were what I use. The cheapest they could go on oils are what I use. Because if they're using cheap materials, if it's too cheap, it can't do what I need it to do. I can't teach them how to do my techniques if their materials won't do that. So that's a problem. And what I used to do, if somebody really wanted to take classes from me, but they did not want to invest so much, or they didn't have the money to invest into some of the supplies, start with graphite. Graphite's super cheap. I can start someone with graphite with a simple, like the General's Layout Extra Black. I can teach someone how to use graphite with a single that pencil. Yeah, I like the full set of pencil, but one pencil. We can start art right now with that pencil. And that is going to do what it needs to. Like that's a decent start. And even if you want to get the full set of graphite pencils, they're not expensive. Especially if you use like a 40% coupon with Hobby Lobby, they get super cheap. But no, I did not let them use student grade materials. When I first started teaching, I would let them, and quickly realized they were getting frustrated because they couldn't do what I could do. But it was because of the materials, not because they couldn't do what I could do. They didn't have the materials they used would not do the glazing, the blending, the shading techniques that I was trying to teach them. So what's the point in trying to learn art, and especially if you're paying for a class, when the materials you're using they physically cannot do what I'm trying to teach them how to do. There's no point in that. So no, I didn't let students bring super like generic stuff to use. Donna said, do you print and trace the reference photos or sketch them out on your own? It depends on what mood I'm in. I do both. Or I use a projector even. So sometimes I trace it, sometimes I use a projector, sometimes I freehand it. It just depends on how much time I have. Am I in the mood to draw, or am I in the mood to just get started painting and I don't want to spend the next 16 hours drawing something out perfectly? The thing is, you will never know which I did which. Well, apparently this one, I freehanded quite a bit here because it looks like it's not correct on a few of these spots. Or stripes. But no one can tell the difference if I freehanded something or if I traced it. There is no difference. And so, because a lot of people like to say, well, you can tell when something was traced. No, you can't. You can't tell. It all looks the same. Like with mine anyway, you cannot tell because I can draw. So it doesn't look any different other than it saved me time, and you can't tell that. So I do all. It just depends on, tracing, projecting, although I guess that could be considered tracing, or freehanding. Just depends on my mood. Let's see. Ian said, question with acrylic and colored pencil work. Is your choice of materials affected by the pigment number like it is with watercolor art? The pigment number, like, you mean the light fast? I mean, all of my paints are light fast, so I don't have to worry about that with acrylics. Colored pencil work, I do make sure that they're all light fast, but pigment number, I'm not sure what you mean there, unless you mean light fast. Robin said, can you do watercolor on canvas boards? Sort of. get a watercolor canvas board, ideally, because they're more paper-like, kind of. Not really, but kind of. The watercolor soaks in better. Regular canvas, you can, but it kind of sets on top. It's almost like it floats. It doesn't really soak in like you would want with watercolor, so it's not ideal. But you can get watercolor canvas boards that are wonderful. Fredericks makes some. I love them. I've used some by other companies before, but the Fredericks ones, I know you guys aren't surprised, are definitely my favorite. Phyllis said, you have the video how you did the background of this painting. Not yet, no. I mean, I've recorded it, but I haven't posted it yet. Let's see. Sarah said, I think YouTube analytics might be more important for us smaller creators who don't always get enough information about what's working from comments. Yeah, definitely. I mean, the more information they offer, the better. Whether or not I choose to use it, that's a whole other situation. So I'm going to keep building up in here. I've got to make sure this fur is starting to get short. See how I just can dab my finger in it and kind of smudge that out. And I'm going to start layering this into the work I did last week. Watch the direction of that fur. So one of my favorite, if you're looking for rake brushes, I have two that I really like. One is a low Cornell. I usually like the ones that are filbert, so it's a rounded rake. And the other one, Bob Ross. I don't like most of Bob Ross's products. They don't work for my techniques, but he has one brush, his wildlife fur brush. That one is pretty cool too. Now you have to watch if you use a rake brush though. And this one, like I said, it's not a rake brush, but it's working like one because it's so damaged. You've got to make sure not to overdo it, because if you do, it starts to be too uniform. So I'll have to go through a lot of this and go on top of it with another brush when I get in individual strands, so that it's not too, you don't want it to all look the same. Judy Gardner said, do you mix an unbleached titanium for the white on the tiger? Yeah, that's, this here was titanium white, and actually no, I think that was all unbleached. I don't remember. I'd have to look back at my video. You could do it either way. But yeah, this is mostly unbleached titanium white that I'm using here. Nick said, have you ever tried anything from Adagio Tea? I don't remember, because I don't remember names of things. But that name sounds familiar, like really familiar. So I might have some here somewhere. I'm not sure. That stranger said, well, if you're a stranger, I can't talk to you. I have to thank you for your colored pencil videos. It's been super useful since I've been illustrating a book for my summer assignment. That's cool. That is really good to hear. Debbie said, oh, that's rolled too far. There we go. Me and Joseph, thanks for the advice and lesson tonight. Gotta head to bed. Good night, Debbie. Okay, I'm going to actually just do the unbleached titanium white for around that eye. I have way too much water on this brush. Oh my gosh, get rid of some of that. That would have been a mess. So let's see, there's the eye. We've got the black, so the white fur is going to be right around here. Watch, like seriously, the direction that this goes in, whether you're colored pencils, oil, acrylics, watch, Inktense, watch the direction of the fur. That is such a big deal, because you'll get to where you start making a few brush strokes and you're like, this looks awesome. I'm just going to repeat that same movement over and over and over and everywhere, and now it doesn't look real. It's too uniform. You really want to watch the direction. It's going to shift constantly. Okay, back to, it gets kind of boring when you're doing the same thing over and over again, but if you're focusing, you'll get it done so quickly. So here, the fur, let's see, this is part of the body as it moves out here. This is his face, it's fairly smooth. We'll just go ahead and start lining that in. This brush has too much water, too much paint. There we go. Dry it off a bit. That works better. Let's see, this fur, I just kind of line things up. So like I look at my reference photo, and I know I'm going to have a dark area that comes down to about here. If I come straight over, this down is where it just starts to get more solid. So I'm going to let's just dry brush this, because I don't want tons of fur detail there. I'll come back through and add a little bit. I'm just going to smudge that out just so I have it blocked in approximately where. Obviously not the right color, because that's just a horrible tan brown that is not right, but I can start getting an idea of where that goes, where the fur is going to shorten up. Gail got new pan pastels. Yeah, I'm having the same problem. I am going to do a big project next with mine, and I don't know what I want to do yet. I haven't decided. So I'm taking this and just going to go over what I did last week. Again, watching the direction. And these brush strokes are actually getting too long. I'm going to wipe that off a bit. I'm going to overlap this a bit into the black, and I'll pull the black back over when I come back through with that. Now watch too when you are painting fur, don't go too blotchy. One thing that I've seen a lot of people do, they want to dab the fur, almost stabbing the canvas with the brush. That's not going to look like fur. That's good. That's toll painting. It's not this kind of painting. So watch for that. So let's see, I got that guy. This is going to turn, what is this? Okay, this is going to be more white all through here. Then we have the orange is going to come back through this way. So I'm going to kind of do the same thing and just block this because it starts to get really short. Just smudge that in. I've got a lot to do on top of it, but now I've got an idea of where that color is. Just, it's almost like creating a loose map, just an idea of where things are, but I'm not drawing in all the little detailed buildings yet or anything. It's not Google Maps. This is like real, like MapQuest back in like 1999. I'll turn it into Google Maps soon, Street View, but not yet. Let's see. Barbara said, what colors will you glaze on the fur of the face? I'm going to be using a little bit of orange, a little bit of magenta. Actually, those colors I'll use a lot. I'm going to even end up pulling in some aqua colors into this, and I'll have to put some of that in the background too, because this guy is, I want to put him on my wall. And the greens are just a real nice accent color with the teals in my apartment, but I'm going to want more teals. So I'm going to pull some of that in there too. But a lot of the colors that I'm going to be using are, I've got my cadmium orange hue from Liquitex Basics, and what is this one? My burnt sienna. This color will be used a lot along with my raw sienna. Those are going to be my main colors. I will put violet as well. Deep violet is going to get used quite a bit. I'm going to put a lot of color. I mean, he'll end up being fairly colorful compared to what the reference photo is, but that's typical for me. Let's see. Deb said, I'm learning colored pencils. I'm experimenting with complementary underpainting of landscapes. I don't see a lot up on YouTube tutorials. Is this useful in colored pencils? I don't, it's weird because when I look at colored pencils, I don't think of it as an underpainting, although I guess technically my first layers could be considered that, but I don't do it quite the same. I would absolutely try it with colored pencils. I mean, I haven't, but I would try that. You may love it. You may hate it. You're not going to know if you don't try it, though. So it could be useful. I'm not going to say it will or it won't because I have not tried it, but it might be. Thanks, Marcel. Natalie said, you've been doing the BFA pre-patch release. I'm also keen to paint a tiger at some point in the near future. I have been. Warcraft is what she's talking about. The new release comes out, I think, Tuesday? So, yeah, I've been playing the last couple of days. I did not realize how much I had to do still to unlock some of the new allied races. I'm even leveling an alliance, which I'm not a fan of alliance, but I want to unlock some of those races, so maybe I will end up playing some of those. But yeah, I've been doing a bunch of that. I've been having fun. I got my High Mountain Torrens Moose last night and the Mana Saber. So yeah, I've been having fun with those. Also, I've been having, I won't talk about WoW forever, but, Natalie plays, so she may appreciate this. I actually, in the last, 3 weeks, maybe month, I don't know, I've gotten the Lich King mount, Ragnaros's mount, the mount from Oldham, whatever the main raid over there is. I forget the boss's name, the Ox something, I can never remember. I got his mount. There was another one. I've gotten so lucky on old raid boss mounts lately. I'm so excited. But yeah, I'm really excited for the expansion. I just finally upgraded or I pre-ordered it last night, the new one. I just scrolled too far. Here we go. Nancy said, there's an artist on YouTube named Bokeh who uses colored pencil over pan pastels for portraits. Yeah, a lot of people do. It's a valid way to work. Kathy Blake said, I've been following you for about a year. Oh, thanks, Kathy. I'm so impressed with your talent across mediums. Do you prefer acrylic over oil? I like how fast acrylic is. So normally, I would say acrylic is probably my favorite medium, just because I can get it done so quickly, but I also wouldn't want to give up oils because I love oils too. So yeah, I think I prefer it, but it depends on what I'm doing. If I'm doing a portrait, hands down oils. I love oils for portraits, just for the way that it blends for skins. Skins? Plural? I don't know why I pluralized that. But yeah, yeah, I would say acrylics usually is my favorite just because I can get so much done so fast. Although I have to wonder if I wasn't creating YouTube videos where I had kind of a deadline and I needed to get a lot of work done, if acrylics would still be my preference. I like this because I can get a painting done and ready for a video so quickly. Although I guess oils, one of the big problems I have with oils is I can't have chicken in the studio, my bird, because of the fumes, so that ends up causing me to not use it as often as I otherwise probably would. Thanks, Marcel. George says, hello, Lachri. I'm about to head to AP Art for the time, and I am able to use up to 5 mediums comfortably, both dry and wet. Am I in great shape to show versatility in an AP portfolio? You're better off than I was. I did AP studio art when I was in high school, and that one, I didn't have any of that. They were the ones who introduced me to acrylic. They're the ones who introduced me to most mediums. I'd really only been doing watercolor and charcoal and graphite. I think that's pretty much all I did at that point. And so it depends on the school. It depends on what their requirements are. And you're better off than I was. I don't know if yours is a college course or I think that would be an AP class would be a high school class that's advanced placement, right? It really depends on the school. I mean, like I said, you're way ahead of where I was when I started, and I did really well in that class. I think I got an A-. The teacher told me because he can't give out A's. He said I was close. But in order to get an A, everything had to be absolutely something. God, what did he tell me? It basically wasn't possible for him to give anybody an A, is what he told me. And so I got an A-. But yeah, it depends on the teacher. It depends on what they're looking for. I would talk to your school and see. Sounds like you're doing good. No, not Oldwar. Oldham. The one with the pyramids and the sand and I can't remember the things. That one, Oldwar, is the raid right before ICC, I believe. You just got the Violet Spellwing. Nice. And the Lucid Nightmare. I don't have either of those. Mara said, would cold pressed watercolor paper be okay to use for pan pastels? You can use it. It wouldn't be my preference. It's not going to stick as well as what I like, so I wouldn't like it, but you technically could, kind of. You may not get the results you want. I guess, though, it just depends on what results you're going for. Ian said, what other medium would you do this painting in, and is there one you would not do it in? No, I would do this in anything. I can't think of anything that this wouldn't work in. Would be fine with watercolor, oils, Inktense, colored pencil. You could do it in any medium. Definitely. Like, I can't think of a single one that I wouldn't. Let's see. Gail said, I missed most of the stream. Well, I'm glad you're here now and got caught in a monsoon. Oh my gosh. And soaked groceries. I realized how much Wednesday nights Lachri's mean to me. Aw. I'll watch it tomorrow and catch up. I'm a little jealous of your rain. Well, I don't know about a monsoon, but I am jealous of the rain. We're supposed to have storms this week, though. I think tonight they start. I'm so excited. I love rain. I love storms. It's one thing that I love. Well, there's lots of things, but one of the things I love about Texas is the thunderstorms. That we really didn't get those much when I lived in California, so the novelty still has not worn off. I really like the thunderstorms here. Okay, so now those brush strokes I just made, see how dark they are? They're a little heavy. I've got too much water in my brush, so I'm going to just dab that off on a paper towel, because I don't have as much control when it's that wet. I'm actually just going to kind of dry brush this into a little bit, let that fade up. Blake said, I just bought the Derwent Pro Color set. Where can I find a list of which pencils are Lightfast? On their website. If you go to their website, it should have the Lightfast information right there. They'll show you a chart of the numbers. The one thing I hate with those pencils, they don't tell you on the pencil. And so, like, my friend Jimmy was over a few weeks ago, and he was messing with all of them. And so right now my whole set is kind of mixed up. And I need to go through with that stupid chart and figure out which pencils are in the Lightfast row and which are in the non-Lightfast row. So I'm not blaming Jimmy for that. I'm just saying it's annoying that it's not marked on the pencil. But Derwent learned from that mistake, and their Lightfast pencils all say LF1 on it, so it's really easy to see, although you already know the whole set is Lightfast, so a little bit redundant, but still nice. I like when they mark what is on them. But yeah, go to Derwent's website. It'll be on there. Brent said, I never got anything higher than a C in any art class except for art appreciation. I've only taken 2 art classes in school because I was in orchestra growing up, or that was in junior high, or I think, a lot of people call that middle school now. But that one, orchestra took the place of my elective, so I didn't get to take any art classes like my friends. So I didn't take any then, and then in high school I took 1 intro to art, and I got a C in that. The teacher should not have been teaching. She should not have been around people in general. She was a bitter, bitter woman. But she didn't teach anything. She just gave you bad grades for not somehow knowing what she wanted you to do. Terrible. Then the AP Studio Art class was great. They didn't really teach you anything either, but they were like, here are the supplies. Here's your theme. Have at it. And it was fun. It was just, I loved it. It was my favorite class. Mara Black, oh, that went too far. Mara Black said, I'm not allowed sugar. Do the teas you like taste okay without adding sugar to them? I'm trying to find nice teas without the bitterness if you add any sweetening. I actually just I don't put sugar in my tea anyway, but I gave up sugar a week ago. Oh my God. Nobody warned me when you give up sugar, you get all emotional about stuff. Like, I was depressed for the last week for nothing. There's nothing. My life is amazing. Like, amazing husband, amazing family, amazing everything. And I was mopey. Like, super mopey. I'm walking around with whining at my husband. This has nothing to do with your question. But I've been walking around all week telling my husband, I'm so bored. Everything's boring. Like, nothing held my interest. I was like, it's weird that sugar can have that much effect on your emotional state. Like, I'm not normally like that, but it really, gosh, I'm definitely not going to go back to it if giving it up was this much of a challenge. This is day 8 now, and I'm still whiny. But anyway, yeah, no, I don't do sugar either. So this one here, the raspberry hibiscus, is a bit bitter. That one does have that like kick to it. I kind of like it, and sometimes not so much. But the blueberry herbal one from Stash, that one is, it tastes like sugars. It's not, but it tastes like, it just has a really nice flavor to it. That one doesn't need it without having the bitterness. So I would try the blueberry one. That one's really good. But I mean, I don't add sugar. Even before I gave up sugar, I already didn't add sugar to my tea. If anything, sometimes I used to add honey, raw honey, but I don't even do that. I haven't done that in forever. So, yeah. And if you put raw honey in this one, the raspberry hibiscus, it tastes like Kool-Aid. It's weird. I don't like it. Diane said, what is your recommendation for oil-based colored pencils, and how big of a set should I start out with? All I have are Prismacolor colors right now. Okay, so this is kind of a two-part question. I need to rinse this brush before I damage it, because I'm going to talk for a minute about this. So right now, my polychromos have been like top of the line for me, and it's still a must-have for me. But the new Derwent Pro Color, the new Derwent Lightfast set, they're oil-based, but they feel more like wax to me. They don't actually feel like polychromos do. If you're looking for like a really, really oil-based pencil, I love the polychromos. The more pencils you can get, absolutely the better, because trust me, you're going to want more colors. You can mix with a smaller set, so get whatever is in your budget, but I do, if you have the ability to get all of them, I would. All of them at 2 are Lightfast in the polychromos set, or Lightfast enough. They're ranked I won't use lower than a 5.6 on blue wool, and only 2 of them don't meet that requirement in that set. The new Derwent Lightfast, the problem with those right now, there's only 36 colors, and most of them are fairly muted. You don't have a huge range of color available yet. They will be. They're releasing more next year, but right now you are limited on color. Like, there's not a true red, there's not a true blue. That's kind of an issue, because you have to have those 2 colors to mix from other things. So if you are using them along with your polychromos, you'll probably like them. With your Prismacolor. But because you have Prismacolor already, if you're going to use them in combination, I would just go to the polychromos right now. I think that would probably be a better fit if you don't want to get all of, a ton of stuff all at once. I think that would be my recommendation. But like I said, the Lightfast colored pencils from Derwent, I am in love with them. And they are an oil base, but they feel more somewhere between a wax and an oil to me. Like, they're very, very waxy. They blend closer to like what Prismacolor does, but without the wax bloom. So it's really interesting with those. But like I said, 36 colors is not a lot. And especially that most of the colors in that set are like creams, browns, tans. But then on the side of the flip side of that, they have 3 purples in that set that are on my must-have colored pencil lists now. Violet. There's a violet, a nightshade, and I forget what the other one is. But they're wonderful. So when those are available open stock, I would definitely pick those up too. I just scrolled past Sarah's question or comment. I'm not sure which it was because it scrolled past it. Hold on. There we go. Sarah said, you said you don't say what. Oh, you are doing text speak, Sarah. I cannot read text speak. You said you don't. I can't read that. I'm having to read it. Sarah, if you can ask your question again, but like actually write out the words, I'll be able to decipher that. Right now, I feel like I'd have to transpose, and I don't transpose text speak quickly. DJ said, I wish we would get a big storm here. It's so humid. Oh, humid and no storm. That sucks. At least if you have a storm, that makes up for the humidity, right? When it's just humid, ugh. I don't like that. That's how we've actually been a lot lately. I think that's what killed my last adenium. I don't think the pot dried out fast enough because of the humidity. Nancy said, I'm in the process of going through my pencils and making the less light fast by putting a ring of washi tape around the pencils. Someday, I should do that. You're a genius. I could just put a dot of like nail polish on the non-light fast ones. I am doing that the next time I separate these. Why didn't I do that already? That's actually a really good idea. Gail said, I love all things rain too. Makes me feel alive. We're considered pluvophiles? I don't know how to say that. A person who loves and takes comfort from rain. My husband's the same way. Like, most people I know love rain. I don't know too many who don't. I think people who don't are weird. How's that? Well, I guess if you live somewhere that rained all the time, though, you could get really sick of it. That makes sense. I'm from California. We never had rain, or not Southern California. Joe said, apologies if you said, but is Raspberry Hibiscus by Stash? Yes, it is. Oh, scrolled past. George had a question. I was recently gifted the 150 colored pencil, Prismacolor pencil set. Woohoo! After another medium to add under my belt. With a good understanding of color theory, what should I practice drawing first? I always like getting people started with roses. I like roses for a new medium because you've got to learn to make it three-dimensional where things fold and curve and shadows and highlights, and you're learning all of that and the blending. But if a petal isn't drawn perfectly, no one's going to know the difference, and so it's not discouraging. Whereas if you start with like a portrait and your drawing isn't perfect, that can be discouraging while you're trying to learn a medium at the same time. So I like roses because I feel like they're not too difficult to get started. Grapes are a really good one with colored pencils too, because you've got a lot of colors, a lot of blending, a lot you can do with grapes. Mara said they said the addiction to sugar is as strong and as a serious drug addiction, and it feeds cancers. Yeah, that's a big thing. Yeah, definitely. Soon your energy is going to kick in big time. You'll be pleasantly energized. I didn't think it was going to affect me the way it did, giving it up, because the only sugar I have, once a week, the restaurant I go to, I get 2 margaritas, and that has sugar in it. And then every day, I have 2 cups of coffee, 1 in the morning, 1 at night, and that has coffee creamer in it that has sugar in it. But I thought, I don't eat sugar otherwise. So I eat a very low carb or very, very low carb diet. Besides that, that's the only sugar at all. And now, so I thought, it's not that much. It's not going to be hard to kick the habit because I don't eat that much anyway. Like, even if I have chocolate, it's like almost 100%. Well, now it is 100% cocoa, so no added sugar. Tastes like eating wax, but bitter wax. But anyway, I didn't think it would be as hard as it is, but it has been like, I'm not finding myself being moody, but I'm not irritable, but like I'm on the I noticed that yesterday out of the blue, I felt like I was going to cry for nothing. There was no trigger. There was nothing. I was just like, I feel like crying right now. What in the world? Like, this is, it has been not fun. It amazed me though, because really, that's the only sugar in my diet were those things. Like, even if I have ketchup, it's one with no sugar. So with that little amount of sugar, I'm still reacting this strongly to kicking that habit. And wow, it makes me like, I don't plan on cheating either. I'm going on vacation to my mom's in September. I was telling my husband this, like, I'm not even going to cheat while I'm there because I'm not going to go through these withdrawals again. This is going to be a one-time thing for me. I definitely believe that it's as strong as a drug addiction there. Like, it's been a challenge. Like, and it's not that I'm craving sugar so much. It's the way I'm otherwise being affected. I get minor cravings, but like I said, I don't eat that much. So that part hasn't been hard. It's just the emotional side. It's crazy to me how that little sugar can impact us that much. Oh, good, Sarah, you reworded that. Thank you so much. You said zoos can be weird about posting artwork from photos taken there. I don't know their policies on artwork, but the San Diego Zoo encourages people to post pictures taken there and tag them. Yeah, but their problem with zoos is basically if you're going to do anything, like, you can't sell prints of that photograph. You can't take a photo at the zoo and then make posters and sell that. You can't, some zoos have told artists that they can't paint their animals and sell that artwork. So, that's why I'm just not even messing with it. If I take a photo, I'm not copying the zoo. I'm not using the name of the zoo. Like, it doesn't say blank blank zoo in the background or, whatever. They don't want their brand done with that. And they also don't want people making money off, I guess, their business. So Gail said, I like a little coffee with my creamer. Yeah, that's kind of... I'm with you on that. I used to, when I first started putting coffee in, or drinking coffee, or drinking it daily, I was measuring. I would take the little measuring thing and only 1 tablespoon, like a tiny amount. Otherwise, I know I'm going to pour half the bottle in. Yeah, I got to where towards the end I was pouring half the bottle in. So that's over. What kind of coffee creamer did I use? Usually vanilla. Vanilla was a favorite because it kind of goes with everything. I had chocolate. I didn't use that one as often. Mostly vanilla was probably my main go-to. There was a coconut cream one I'd been using, though, too. So, yeah, no more. Hazelnut. I never got into hazelnut with coffee. It makes the coffee taste burnt to me. Like, I've tried it several times. Anything that's nut, and I've not been a huge, like, my taste buds just don't like it. Gail said... you need a certain amount of good carbs. Yeah, I eat good carbs. I still eat fruit. I didn't cut that. And it's funny because I would think, oh, that'll be that. And it's not the same kind of sugar. Not the same. It is not curbing the withdrawals. That's for sure. last week, actually, the first day of no sugar. Last Wednesday, actually, I was so tired. I could not even talk during the live stream. I almost canceled the live stream because I felt terrible. I didn't realize that it was from the sugar at the time. I'm like, day one of no sugar, and I'm already, I felt like absolutely horrible. That seems to have gone away. Like I had the shakes, like my hands were shaky from not having coffee creamer. That's terrifying when food can affect you that much. But that went away. Now it's just the other side effects of my body is not used to not having sugar. Yeah, and everybody has different kinds of withdrawals too. It's not the same for everybody. My husband gave it up last summer, and he said he was irritable and he had his cravings. His thing was he had really bad cravings. I'm not really having the cravings so much. It's the rest of it. Like I my whole body felt terrible. So I also know when you give up sugar or carb. Well, I already don't eat carbs, or not many. But you can also, if you have an overgrowth of candida in your system, when you get the candida die off, that'll make you really sick too. So cutting the sugar, being that I had antibiotics last year after all my surgeries, there is a possibility that I did have candida in my system. And so I may have just been experiencing die off when they didn't have sugar to feed off of. Sarah said, I like to make my zoo paintings look as much like the animal in the wild as possible. Me too. Or I like to put like damask backgrounds, or like I just want mine to look different. I think it makes it look more interesting too. Mara said, count your sugar contents in your daily food, like milk, bread. I can't have carrots, corn, or cucumber. Too much sugar. Same with fruit. I don't eat corn anyway. I don't eat potatoes. I don't eat those sorts of carbs. I don't drink milk. I don't eat bread. I have celiac disease, but I already don't have those kind of carbs anyway. I don't like carrots. I do like cucumbers. But yeah, it's I definitely don't have a lot of any of that. I do eat fruit, like I've been eating plums, which are very high in sugar, but it's a different type of sugar. So your body, like as far as what's cancerous and all that, it's not going to be the same. But yeah, all of that. It's just insane too. We add sugar to milk. Why? Or peanut butter. Peanut butter is a funny one. Why are we adding sugar to peanut butter? I eat, Smucker's makes one that's natural. It's just peanuts, salt, and I don't even think it's oil. I think the oil is from the peanuts. It's so good. It's better to me than the one that is full of sugar. The amount of sugar in our like everyday, and you don't think about it so much until you cut it from your diet. And then it's like, oh my gosh, it's amazing how much we're eating on a regular basis. It is in everything. Donna said, do you do a live stream every week? I do. I'm really enjoying watching you paint and getting advice. You rock. Thanks. Yeah, I'm here pretty much. It's rare that I cancel. I mean, even last week I felt terrible from the sugar withdrawals and I still was here. So there will be in September, I'm going out to California to visit my parents. So I won't have one then. But yeah, normally it's every Wednesday. See, I'm just slowly building. Now, here's another tip. I'm only working on his face. Like, that's all I'm going to work on tonight. My whole goal was only the head. I'm not going to move on to the body. I'm not going to move on to the chest. And I break things up into different sections. So, like, my main section, when I start painting, I set these little mini goals. Let me go ahead and put this out. I set these little mini goals. I'm going to work on this section. Then my next day, like once that part's done, I'm going to work on this section here. Once that, actually it'll probably continue this whole section. Once that's done, it'll be just the chest, then just this. And then I'll go back and refine everything else. Like the ears will be done separately. So it's easier. I found much easier to do that than what I used to do is like, well, I'm going to do all this color on the whole body. And then I'm going to go back through and all the next color on the rest of the body. It can definitely end up getting overwhelming. Break it up into little areas. Marlene said you can get keto flu on low carb. Yeah, and a lot of that, what happens with that is a lot of people have candida in their system, and when you remove the things that feed that candida, when it dies off, that's what's causing that flu. You get sick. I went through that before years ago. I went on a candida diet. I was sick. When I getting all of that flushed out of your system, it definitely makes you. That's a real thing. That's for sure. my husband, our natural doctor put him on the Candida diet last year, and he stuck to it. Like, he's still has stuck to that. He's added a few things like vinegar he wasn't able to have before, of white vinegar. He's added that back to his diet, a few other things. But for the most part, he stuck to it. But yeah, he was real sick too for the first, I want to say like a week and a half. I don't remember now, but I remember he really felt like crap when it first started. Let's see. Kathy said, many tone their canvases. Why a black background? In this case, everything was so dark for me, it made more sense. Like the water, which you can't really see that much, but the water, if you look on Instagram, you can see the whole painting so far, but there's so much of this color in the water and in the background, it just made more sense to go ahead and start with a base there and build from that. I could have started with a white canvas. I could have started with a tan canvas. I mean, you can start from anywhere. It just depends on, and the end result can be almost the exact same. It just depends on, for me, what mood I'm in, what I think might save me time. And in this case, being that color, this kind of plum, it's like black and purple mixed together, is over so much of this painting, it just made more sense for me to start here. Ercy said, I drink lots of half and half creamer and coffee with Truvia because I can drink coffee, creamer, and coffee, not straight milk, just lots of creamer and coffee. Yeah, I'm actually lucky. I like black coffee, so that's not like switching to that. What wasn't hard. I mean, I like creamer better, but I like black coffee too, so that part hasn't been too hard for me. I can't do any of the artificial sweeteners, like if it's a sweet and low. I have fibromyalgia. Oh, you want to anger fibromyalgia? Have artificial sweeteners. Oh my gosh, that will cause a flare up like you wouldn't believe. It's so bad. An instant headache. That doesn't work for me. And then I was doing stevia, like drinks that had, the buy drinks had stevia in it. I talked about this a few months ago. I'm done painting for the night. Actually, I can turn this off. We'll just chat for the end of the stream. But I used to do stevia, the buy drinks, they had a lot of stevia in it, and I didn't know why. And this was after my surgeries last year. I felt terrible, and this went on for months. I felt so crappy, and I didn't realize it was from the stevia. When I stopped that, I felt better. And then when I had it again, I tested it, and I get real shaky, and I feel absolutely terrible. Like, it just doesn't work for my system. I guess from what I was reading, some people, it will cause a drop in your blood sugar because your body tastes something sweet, and it thinks that you're having sugar, and so it drops your blood sugar, but you didn't actually have anything sweet, so it caused a weird, like, imbalance there. So all I know is, I was getting sick. So yeah, I had to stop that too. I can't do any of those sweeteners. Sarah likes Laura Scudder peanut butter. It's literally roasted peanuts and maybe some salt. I've had that. That one's good too. I have had that one. George said, are you familiar with VASE, Visual Arts Scholastic Events? I am not. I'm trying to shoot for a gold seal this year. Last year I was so close, but I received a rating 4 medalist. Well, congratulations. I'm not familiar with it, but that's awesome. Good for you. Robin says, good night. Good night, Robin. Donna said, how big is the canvas you're working on tonight? This one is a 24 by 36 inch. It's a big one. So you can see with my hand the size of his face. Now, when you're choosing your canvas size, you want to go big enough that you can get detail, but if you're new to painting, don't go too big. Like, I wouldn't try to do this kind of detail on 11 by 14. It would just be too small. I wouldn't get the same kind of detail. I would want to go with a looser style if I was going to paint this much in it. So here, if I want to get this kind of detail, that gives you an idea of how big you need your canvas to be in order to get I don't have a ton right now, but there will be. So keep that in mind. You have to balance out. If it gets too big, it gets overwhelming, but if it's not big enough, you're not going to get the same kind of detail if you're going with a small canvas. So you kind of have to figure out the balance there. Oh, you guys want to see chicken? Let me go grab chicken really quick, and then I'll answer a couple more questions. Okay, I'll be right back. My knee just went out on me. Oops, I forgot to put the lid on the acrylic paint. Let me do that before chicken ends up in it. Stay here, chicken. Okay. He's going to want, every time he comes in here, he wants to go over to my desk, so we'll see how long he wants to sit with me. Hi, are you happy? You've got a grindy beak. You look excited. You were sleeping, huh? Oops, you're sliding off. Nick asked if I use honey for sweetener. If I use a sweetener, it's honey, but I don't do that. I don't do it very often. I used to eat so much raw honey and started gaining weight and had to stop. Shannon said, I'm nosy, would love to see a picture of your husband, but I'm guessing he doesn't want to be online. Understandable. But would you ever consider painting or drawing him for us? I've actually painted him years ago. No, there's some on Instagram. If you look back far enough, you'll find, I think I've posted him on Instagram before. I need to get more pictures of him. He doesn't like me to take pictures. Whenever I take pictures, I have to like tell him, okay, I'm going to send this to my friend Stacy and Jimmy and my mom or your mom. Like that's all. I'm not putting it online. I have to tell him who's going to see the photo before he'll let me take the photo. Otherwise I get hand in the face or whatever else. Every once in a while he'll let me. But not too often. Let's see. Bethany said, have you tried Swerve? It's supposed to not affect your blood sugar, but it tastes like sugar. No, well, here's the thing. Once you get off sugar, it's not that big of a deal. Like, you don't crave it as much, and it's not even worth it for me to bother with any of it. So I'm not, I gave up sugar once before years ago, like, gosh, probably 15 years ago. So when I did the Candida diet before. And I do know once you hit about 16 days, the cravings go away. I'm not having too hard of a time with cravings. My thing right now is it's affecting my emotion. Like, I'm emotional where I wouldn't normally be. I was super depressed last week. That's starting to fade now. But like, it was really, no, leave the necklace alone. It was really crazy. So yeah, no, I'm really not even too worried about having sugar. I'm actually totally fine without it once I get it out of my system. No, Christine, he's not a real chicken. His name is Chicken, though. He's a shoulder chicken. Huh. You gonna talk? There's a plane outside. Will you talk? Say, buck, buck, chicken bird. Buck, buck. Come on, buck, buck, chicken bird. Did you hear him? It says, buck, buck, chicken bird. It's a good chicken. Let's see. Oh, that scrolled too far. 1 second. I just missed. Breaking Foundation said, I'm making a piece with Inktense, but it looks like I scribble with marker. How do I get smooth transition? Does the paper and brush matter? The paper and brush does matter. Strathmore Bristol 300. I'm not sure. I've not tried it on that. I mix my color separately off. Like, I use my Inktense blocks like a pan watercolor. So I make my ink mixture and then I paint that on. You can also get the paper wet first and then paint, and that's going to give you a smoother look. But I find when I just apply the block or the pencil to the paper and then blend that way, it doesn't give me as smooth of a transition as it does when I mix it separately and then paint on. Like, I will apply the pencils directly to the paper, but for like last details. Mara said, oh, that's girl. Mara says, I have hemochromatosis. Sorry, I said that too long. Way too much iron, so no greens, no nuts, no red or gray meat. Do you have iron issues? No, I don't. They tested me for that years ago because that was they before they knew about fibromyalgia and before they knew about the celiac disease, they weren't sure why I was so sick all the time. So that was one of the first things they tested me with. But it's interesting you say that because nuts, if I have too many nuts, like too much protein at all makes me not feel great. Eating in general makes me not feel great. But no, too many nuts definitely was a problem. Not enough protein makes me not feel, it's a whole thing. Donna said, how about a portrait lesson or challenge on painting chicken? I actually did. Where are you going? Get up. Where are you going? Stay up here. I did paint him, or I drew him in graphite. I'm sure I'll paint him again in the future. I need to draw Nugget next, my husband's parrotlet. Nylira, I apologize for saying that wrong. He said, hi, so what if you run out of the color that you're using? Since you're working on sections, I'm a beginner in acrylic, and this happens to me a lot if the piece takes me 2 days to do. It doesn't need to be exact. You just need to go for close. You do not, it does not need to be exact. And here's the thing. My base layer, I'm going to glaze over all of this, and it's going to pull everything together. But if trying to make the exact same color is so unnecessary, worry about your values. Your dark's dark enough, your light's light enough. That matters. Where are you going? Where do you think you're escaping to? stay up here. But don't over worry about that. You want to show me that you're a big chicken? Are you a big chicken? Come on, big chicken, big chicken. Come on, big chicken. Come on, yeah, big chicken. There you go. Show your wings, big chicken. Come on, big chicken, big chicken. Big chicken, come on. Come on, show me your wings. Big chicken, come on. Show me your wings. Big chicken. Your wings. Big chicken. Where's your wings? You can't just say it. You have to do your wings too. You're cheating. I know you like to say it, but you're supposed to show your wings too. Let's see. And Nick said he empathizes with Matt. I think there are probably 4 photos of me in existence. Yeah, that's pretty much Matt too. Vladimir said, I so avoid birds since my mother always told me they would eat and peck my eyeballs out or just peck and bite me in general. I mean, okay, he does do that sometimes. Sometimes you're a brat, but that's funny. Scroll too far. Natalie said, I'm getting tested for fibro this week. Just got diagnosed with Hashimoto's and a bit lost. I'd love some coping tips with artwork, schedule in between pain, or a link to look at. Diet. Here's my, okay, I'm not a doctor. I'm not giving you medical advice. I will tell you what worked for me. Not painkillers, that's for sure. And a lot of people, a lot of the painkillers, like when I first was diagnosed, they're like, okay, so here's your prescription for Lyrica. No, I'd like my kidneys and liver to continue working, so I'm going to pass on that. I finally found I can control it with diet. That's the big thing. That's why I don't eat carbs, why I avoid sugar, and why I completely cut it the rest of the way. But carbs were a big thing because they were causing inflammation, and if I eat carbs now, like if I have mashed potatoes tonight, my knees will be so sore by the morning. Like it's noticeable, the difference. But I was able to completely control my pain. No, leave the necklace alone. I end up with pain a little. Where are you trying to go? You want my knee, huh? Go ahead. I can control my pain with not, carbs, sugar, MSG, artificial sweeteners, just as bad for me. Anything unnatural. And when I say carbs, I mean potatoes, rice, corn. I can't have any of that. That really causes, and I cheat sometimes, but not too often. But I'm not having the problem with pain that I used to. Now, I mean, it's uncomfortable. Like, I don't like to shake hands with people. Well, first off, I don't like to touch people. But I don't like, it's uncomfortable for me. I am sensitive, but I'm not having that horrible, like, stabbing pain where you suddenly feel like someone's stabbing you. I don't really get that too much almost ever now, unless I cheat and have something I shouldn't. So, like, when I'd have those margaritas the once a week, I definitely noticed it after drinking those. I would be more prone to pain. But I learned to control it with diet. And I'm not saying what worked for me is going to work for you, but it's something to consider when you're looking into the treatments. A friend of mine kept commenting, and he'd tell me, my mom's in the hospital again because she's on like 10 different medications for fibromyalgia, and this one counteracts this one, and this one counteracts this one. That woman is in so much more pain than I am. We started in the same place, yet her pain's just gotten worse and worse. But on top of that, everything else is failing because of the medication she took for it. And I don't know, maybe she took too much. I have no idea. Again, not a doctor. I am not giving you medical advice. But it just didn't, like, when I would see that, I'm like, that doesn't make sense to me. What can I do? Like, is there something else I can do? So I just did a Google search for things that people did for, like, naturally helping, and nothing fixed it 100%. But the pain, I hardly ever have to deal with pain anymore. And my diet is strict. My diet is really, really strict, but I would rather do that than take a lot of the medications that I've seen hurt so many people. So, and the people that I know who take them are still in pain. So I'm like, well, that doesn't make any sense to me. So I just, and it took me years to figure out what foods did and didn't work. I'm not going to promise you what works for me will work for you. I don't know. Everyone's different. You just have to figure that out. But, the Hashimoto's, that's different. That medication I know nothing about. That's, I think, a thyroid thing, so you're going to need treatment for that. But with the fibro, that medication, it's not curing you. It's not making it different. So I'm not sure why it's so heavily prescribed, given how much damage it does for so many people. But as far as scheduling artwork, that's how I had to control the pain first. And you're going to have days that for me now, it's more days that I'm super tired and I don't want to work. I'm just too tired. Or if my back goes out, that can also cause problems. But you're just going to have to give yourself permission on days that you feel like crap. You're not going to work that day. It's going to happen. I try to work through it because a lot, well, depending on how bad the pain was, I would try to work through it if it was more medium or mild, because if I'm gonna be in pain whether I'm laying in bed or I'm sitting at the easel, if it's not making any difference. But there were days where the nausea was so bad I couldn't work through that. So some days you just have to take off and read a book, and that may be what happens. Don't try not to be frustrated with yourself when that happens, because it's going to. You're going to have bad days. You just get to take that as a day off, an extra book reading day. So try not, don't stress about it too much, and don't feel guilty when you have to have a day off. I hope that helps. I mean, everyone will be a bit different. And again, not medical advice at all. I'm not a doctor. I can only tell you what my experience was. Nancy said, is Nugget a celestial Pacific parrotlet? Gosh, I looked it up. He's from south of the U.S. I know that. He's on this continent is where he's from. I don't know that helps at all. I don't remember. Deb said, thanks for all the great answers. This has been fun and very education. Very educational. I'm tired. Thanks for joining. Nyleria said, thanks, Lisa. By the way, love your bird. Thanks. Any advice on taking care of them? You're going to clean the cage and clean seed quite often. Clean food and water and vegetables and fruit. You don't want to just give them seed. They should have vegetables and fruit. I don't like the pellets because it's the equivalent of kibble, and just knowing that the way it's processed and that dog kibble, because of the way that it's heated, is carcinogenic. My dogs eat a raw diet too. I'm into the natural thing, but they, with birds, I don't believe the whole pellet thing, so I don't personally feed that. I feed seed and vegetables and fruit. But that's a big one. And lots of attention. Like, if they don't get attention every day, you can have a bird. Hi, chicken. Want to come say hi? He just wants to sit on my knee. You can have a bird that is super sweet and can turn out to be really nasty because you don't give him enough attention. That's a big deal. What? I don't want you down there. Where are you going? Chicken, where are you going? So, they have to have attention. You can get a hand-fed bird that's super, super sweet. And if you don't have time for that bird, don't get him. Like, if you don't have time to spend hours and hours a day, that he needs to be able to hang out with me or my husband. Otherwise, he's not going to be content. He's not going to be happy. We got Nugget to keep in the room with him, and that has really helped. He's definitely seems happier, but he still is going to need hours of attention a day to really stay happy. Vladimir said, I can't have red meat or sugar. Well, at least not too much sugar because it inflames my face and causes acne. That would be a reason not to want to eat it. Sarah said there was an ancient physician who said that no disease can be treated with food should be treated through any other means. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of my attitude. If I can control something with diet, it sucks. It's hard. I miss Twinkies, but you can't have that with celiac disease anyway. But, it wasn't worth feeling as bad. I mean, I used to live off Doritos and Skittles, because they're both gluten-free. And I was like stuck in my bed. Are you going to sit over there? You're going to go talk on this camera? Come on. Here, chicken on the camera. He comes when he's called, and he follows my fingers around. If I say come on, he'll follow him going chicken, 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 chicken as he follows my fingers. Like, I do that on the floor, and he'll follow him anywhere I can go through the obstacle courses with him. I don't know why he follows my fingers like that. Like, I've never had a bird do that, but okay. But are you saying chicken, chicken already? I don't even know what I was talking about right there. But yeah, the Skittles and Doritos I was living off of, I was so sick all the time. Now, that's not a balanced diet for anyone, even if you don't have health problems, so that wasn't helping. But, the change in diet can really make a difference. Natalie said, I really I need to do some elimination diet. I'll listen to the doctor, of course. Yeah, listen to your doctor. But your opinion is valid to me. I do get the resting guilt too. Yeah, and I still do that. I mean, I even have days now where I'm like, okay, and this is the big thing. You have to learn to balance out, because you can get in the habit of just being lazy because you felt sick for so long, because this happened to me. I was so sick so often that I got to the point where I just assumed I was sick and realized, wait, no, I'm actually not sick today. I'm just being lazy. Like, balance out. Am I having a lazy day or am I having an actual sick day? I had to start to really think about what the difference was so that I didn't take, because I tend to be a lazy person. I like to just lay around and read a book all day, every day. Forever. So I had to really balance, like, okay, am I honestly not feeling good today, or am I just wanting to be late. Like, yeah, that was a big thing to balance, so that I didn't feel the guilt on the days that I say lazy days, but the days that I was actually sick. Breaking Foundation said, I'm using the Inktense as watercolor. Yep, that's basically how I use most of it. You make it look so easy. It has a lot of hot spots to mine, and it looks like it could be damaging the paper. I'm not sure what you mean. I would need to see what that is. You may want to post over in our art group where people can see what you're talking about. Maybe someone else can, if one of the other artists there can see what you're talking. Like, it's hard to visualize what you're saying, so I'm not sure if maybe it may just be the wrong paper for a water media. Gail said, quality time with birds is #1. Yeah, they really, if he doesn't get enough attention with me too, this is funny, he wants to sit on my desk all the time. So we play Warcraft together. If he doesn't get to do that, like if I go to, like, let's say I have a week where I hang out with him in the other room, but not here where he wants to be, he'll intentionally, like, I'll pick him up and he'll fly straight to my husband, where normally he only wants me, or prefers me. So it's really funny. It can happen quickly too if they don't get enough attention. Hi, chicken. What are you doing? Yeah? You happy? Let's see. And you may want to, Natalie, too, talk to a dietitian. I mean, they have dietitians who work with Western medicine, or are Western medicine doctors that aren't just, I know a lot of people don't like the natural stuff or think it's kind of weird. But they're just a good dietitian in general. I mean, like Cancer Treatment Center of America, one of the reasons they work so well is that they work with the diet and with Western, like it's all the best of everything all in one. So I think that, just learning what foods work and don't work is a big deal. Miller said, I try to avoid meat, red meat, and whole milk as much as I can. Although a cheeseburger gets me because I've had times where it almost becomes like an allergic reaction. Oh yeah. You'll really notice the difference too when you haven't had something for a while and it makes you really feel like crap. It makes it much easier to resist having it again in the future. I think that definitely helps when it's like, I know if I eat this, my knees are going to swell up you can visually see them swollen when I have potatoes. So it makes it easy for me to resist when it's like, ooh, is tasting something good for the next 5 minutes worth me being in pain for 2 days? So yeah, that definitely is good. Okay, so we'll go ahead and wrap up. Again, make sure to check out our moderators channels, Valerie and Joseph. Nick, he's been moderating tonight too, I think. I'm not sure if Nick has a channel here. I should know that. I think he does. But I've got Valerie and Joseph's channels are in the video description. Make sure to subscribe to them. They've got really cool content. And thank you guys for joining. And I don't know I'm sure this will be done by next week. So I have no idea what next week's live stream will be. But I will see you guys then. You're going to say bye? Oh, he's going to poop on my palette. Lovely, chicken. That's how you're going to say goodbye. Is that what you think of this? Now I've got to go get the Windex. Don't use Windex in the room with your bird either. He's got to be out of the room for that. But that was lovely, chicken. Thanks. I'll see you guys next week. Bye.